the technological template of Konoha. Greetings, fellow multiversal adventurers. It's an honor to have you back in this saga that has us all hooked. Official channel statement: this story is 100% epic fiction, so please don't attempt real magic. The results aren't guaranteed and insurance won't cover it. The rights to this masterpiece belong entirely to its brilliant original author. We are just a barge sharing it with you. Do you want to keep being part of this amazing community? Join our ninja army of subscribers on YouTube and give this content a like. And for true fans, our Patreon has exclusive ninjutsu waiting for you. Chapter 126: Espionage in Action. Watch out! It's water release, great waterfall technique, coming straight for us. A frantic shout escaped Hyuga Mieko's lips, sending chills down the spines of the surrounding Konoha ninja. The consequences of being scattered by the great waterfall technique were obvious. Luck might allow them to be rescued by other small groups, but bad luck would mean facing relentless attacks from the surrounding Mist Village ninja, a certain death. Earth release, earth wall. Earthen walls rose from the flooded ground, hoping to block the onslaught of the great waterfall technique. It's water dragon bullets technique. It's coming from three directions. Hyuga Mieko's renewed shout shattered any remaining hope. Bang! 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 The sounds of impact echoed against the earthen walls, followed by the cracking of the walls and the rushing water. The earthen walls, on which the Konoha ninja had placed their hopes, crumbled into rubble. Boom! The torrent of water, like a waterfall, washed over the Konoha ninja's defenses, scattering them one by one. In the original story, Zabuza was also taken away. It's over. Despair rose in the hearts of almost every Konoha ninja who was swept away. Han-kun, in the next life, we'll meet again. Swept up by the great waterfall technique, Hyuga Mieko took out the phone that Gecko Han had given her and sent a message with tears streaming down her face. With her Byakugan activated, she could already see the Mist Village ninja rushing towards the scattered Konoha ninja like wolves. She also saw several Mist Village ninja figures running towards her. Boom! Loud rumbling sounds echoed in the sky, the sound of breaking the sound barrier. What's that sound? Farmers in the fields, people in the town, and pedestrians on the riverbank all looked up at the sky, but they couldn't see anything. The sky was still the same sky, except that two long white clouds had appeared in it. Thousands of meters in the sky, Moonlight Han, transformed into a Cybertronian fighter jet, was speeding across the heavens at Mach 3. This was a speed of 1 kilometer per second. Faster, faster. However, this speed was not enough for Moonlight Han. He continued to urge himself on, hoping to go even faster. Even though he had already covered half the distance in half a minute. Mieko, Altair, you must hold on, even if it's just for a minute. Just 1 minute. Intelligence, you must deliver. Screams echoed through the fog-shrouded forest as Konoha ninjas, scattered by the great waterfall technique, faced the hidden mists ninjutsu and Kune in a dazed state. Most didn't even have time to resist before their lives ended. 8 trigrams 8 palms. Mieko, scattered by the spray, hastily used the 8 trigrams 8 palms, deflecting all the Kune aimed at her and Altair in the fog. However, her hand was also cut by the Kune. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. Seeing the 3 Kurigakure ninja charging towards her, Mieko gritted her teeth and used her clenched fist technique again, actively meeting their attack. Instantly, the sounds of fists clashing and weapons slicing through the air echoed through the thick fog. Hyuga ninjas, the 3 Kurigakure ninjas were overjoyed, their attacks becoming even more ferocious. 2 fists can't fight 6 hands, especially since the 3 Kurigakure ninjas were all stronger than Mieko and were using weapons. In a short time, several wounds appeared on Mieko's body. Even after her 8 trigrams 64 palms technique was finished, it couldn't inflict enough damage to reverse the situation. The 8 trigrams 64 palms was over, the offensive was over. Goodbye, Han-kun. Seeing the long sword slashing towards her neck, it was too late to dodge. Mieko resignedly closed her eyes. Before dying, everything from the past flashed through her mind like a slideshow. The most vivid image in her mind was of Yu Guanghan diligently training, almost entirely filing her thoughts. Yu Guanghan trained relentlessly every day, rain or shine, never stopping even in heavy rain, snow, or hail. She, too, secretly watched her train every day, rain or shine, without fail. Even during the month Yu Guanghan was despondent after her parents' death, she secretly watched her every day. She wanted to comfort her more than once, but didn't know how to begin, until Yu Guanghan went to the battlefield. As a member of the branch family, She already knew her fate. After being branded with a caged bird seal, influenced by her parents' resignation, she had already accepted her destiny. She was powerless to resist. It was Yu Guang'an's persistent and indomitable spirit that rekindled her fighting spirit. Even if she had accepted her fate, she wanted to live a life of value and brilliance. She trained relentlessly every day, never giving up at school. Her efforts made her a genius girl of the Hyuga clan. It was Yu Guang'an's diligent training that, unwittingly, shaped who she was today. Upon learning she would become Moonlight Hand's fiancée, she was truly overjoyed, even if it was merely a political marriage between families. Because in her heart, Moonlight Hand's image was already deeply etched, more ingrained than a caged bird. The anticipated pain did not arrive, nor did her consciousness fade. Mieko opened her eyes again, only to find the three mist netherworlds still in their attack stance, their long swords less than 5 centimeters from her neck. However, the swords had now broken, and the three mist netherworlds made no further move, as if time had stopped. Crack! The next moment, a terrifyingly long wound simultaneously opened on the bodies of the three mist netherworlds, blood spurting out, and they collapsed straight to the ground. Only then did Mieko see two strange red lights in the thick fog behind the three fallen mist netherworlds. She had seen these red lights before. They were the same as Moonlight Hand's eyes at night. Upon closer inspection, she discovered that beneath these two red lights was something as thin as a cicada's wing. Like a line, only the eyes were round objects. The spy's eyes are red electronic eyes. Wasn't it too late? Will Master destroy us when he gets here? Probably not. After all, we protected the people Master asked us to protect. By the way, why do we Decepticons protect humans? Go ask Master. I dare not. An unintelligible voice rang out, and two things as thin as cicada wings stood beside her and Altair, finally allowing Mieko to see their profiles. They were two humanoid figures composed of blades as thin as cicada wings, like puppets. In the thick fog, the red light appeared exceptionally bright, immediately attracting many people in the fog. Those fog hunters who had killed their targets began to slowly gather around. Chapter 127 Moonlight Hand's powerful support. Eliminate the threat. The electronic eyes detected the approaching mist ninja, and with two mechanical voices, the two intelligence agents immediately sprang into action. Compared to the mist ninja's assassination ninjas within the dense fog, the intelligence agents seemed more suited to this fog. Their electronic computing systems allowed them to conceal themselves at the best angles within the fog. Their thin, almost translucent bodies were even harder to spot on the fog, and their movements wouldn't cause any disturbances. Their blade-like bodies were also extremely dangerous. Aside from their somewhat conspicuous red electronic eyes, they were arguably the kings of this fog. Throwing knives and discs shot from their bodies, cutting through the fog without causing any ripples. With a flick of their arms, they silently decapitated people. Even if the mist ninja could see their eyes, they couldn't see their attacks. PFFT PFFT PFFT, oh, ouch! The sounds of sharp blades piercing flesh and screams echoed continuously in the thick fog. Under the attack of the intelligence, the Mist-Kid ninjas didn't even realize they were being attacked until they were wounded or even dead. But it was too late. The intelligence belonged to the Decepticons, and unless ordered, they wouldn't leave any survivors. There's something unseen hidden in the fog. Even sensory ninjutsu can't detect it. Everyone be careful! An urgent shout rang out in the fog. It wasn't the voice of a Konoha ninja, but the voice of a Mist-Kid ninja. Hearing their comrades' screams but unable to find the enemy, the remaining Mist-Kid ninjas who had surrounded them quickly retreated from the dangerous area. Amazing, Mieko was also somewhat stunned. Even with her Byakugan activated, she could only see the intelligence reports appearing and disappearing. The Mist-Kid ninjas seemed to have been killed by ghosts. Apart from their screams, she couldn't even see what was attacking them. It was extremely eerie. At the same time, hope rose in her eyes, the hope of survival. The Hidden Mist ninja possess unique sensory methods within their Hidden Mist techniques. Cover with ninjutsu, a shout rang out from the thick fog. Hidden Mist ninja, concealed within the fog, began forming hand seals. Water release, water dragon bullet technique, water release, water severing wave, water release, flying water thousand needles. A barrage of water release ninjutsu flew in from all directions, densely packed, leaving no room for escape. Since they couldn't find the enemy, they would completely cover this area with ninjutsu, including the two Konoha ninja within. Still can't escape this calamity. Seeing the ninjutsu flying in from all directions again, Mieko despaired once more. The intelligence agents were clearly skilled in assassination and couldn't protect her from these ninjutsu. Boom! Just as the ninjutsu from all directions were about to engulf her, suddenly, two enormous metal legs descended from the sky, landing steadily between Miyako and Altair. Before the two could react, two enormous metal hands had already grabbed them and lifted them 12 or 13 meters high. Buzz buzz buzz, the buzzing of a Gatling gun filled their ears, and a hail of metal bullets rained down on them in the blink of an eye. In Mihako's stunned by Tsuka, the dozen or so hidden mist ninjas surrounding them were instantly torn to shreds. Splash! Only then did the surrounding water-style ninjutsu crash into the giant metal legs, splashing water everywhere. The giant metal legs didn't budge an inch. Hankun, Altair and Mihako stared in disbelief at Megatron, who was holding them aloft. Wasn't Hankun in Konoha? Why was he here? Luckily we made it in time, a metallic voice replied, and Moonlight Han gently placed the two on his small head. How did this happen? Where's Shinisu Hyuga? In Moonlight Han's infrared electronic eyes, the surrounding area was filled with heat sources from battles or moving heat sources. It was obvious that the Konoha ninja and Kirigakure ninja were currently engaged in a fierce battle within the dense fog. It had also received the intelligence sent to Shinisu, but the intelligence report indicated that it hadn't had time to transform before being separated from Shinisu by the flood, and now it couldn't find him. We've been separated from Shinisu by the flood, clutching the metal protrusion on Megatron's head, Miyako said remorsefully, quickly explaining the situation to Moonlight Han. Miyako, point out the enemy, I'll attack, Moonlight Han said, his massive body moving through the fog. Simultaneously, 4 Gatling guns on Moonlight Han's shoulders were aimed at the surrounding area. Over there, 30 meters away, 3 people. During the operation, Miyako pointed in a direction and quickly announced. Buzz! With Miyako's words, the Gatling gun on Yuguang Han's shoulder immediately adjusted its direction and opened fire. A long tongue of fire shot out more than a meter, and the rain of bullets stirred the thick fog, tearing apart the 3 mist ninja Miyako had mentioned in the blink of an eye. Over there, 50 meters, 6 people, Miyako pointed in a direction again. Buzz buzz buzz, the Gatling gun opened fire instantly, metal bullets raining down at a rate of 100 rounds per second. Yellow shell casings fell to the ground like flowing water, shattering into rocks. Over there, buzz, in the thick fog, as Miyako continuously reported the locations and numbers, the buzzing of gunfire echoed through the fog. Yu Guanghan only needed Miyako to identify friend and foe and the distance, and he could instantly blast a mist ninja to pieces. Whether the enemy was a Jinan, a Chunin, or a powerful Jinin, facing bullets faster than sound and denser than rain, there was absolutely no chance of survival. Even if someone hastily set up a defense, it was nothing more than a matter of Yu Guanghan's cannon fire. In a mere minute, hundreds of Kirigakure ninja perished. The dense fog had made their battle possible, but it had also claimed their lives. The continuous gunfire from within the fog drew the attention of the Kirigakure. More and more Kirigakure ninja began to converge, but they were no match for the sheer number of opponents. Their arrival meant certain death, offering no second of respite. Finally, the increasing number of Kirigakure deaths and the persistent, strange buzzing sound alerted the Kirigakure ninja. A name representing slaughter and fear gradually surfaced in their minds. Accompanied by the strange buzzing sound, that name became increasingly clear. Retreat. With shouts of encouragement, the Kirigakure ninja in the fog retreated swiftly like the receding tide. Buzz 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 bang 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 bang. However, as they retreated, once again clearly separated from the Konoha ninja, gunfire erupted. And their nightmare began. Countless metal projectiles rained down like a storm, accompanied by violent explosions. The retreating Kirigakure ninja were rapidly being killed at a rate exceeding 20 per second. The name that terrified them was now firmly etched in their minds. The killing machine of the ninja world had arrived. Chapter 128. Uchiha wants to form an alliance. At noon, as the hidden mist ninja withdrew and the sun rose, the thick fog that had blanketed the 100-kilometer-long forest gradually dissipated, finally revealing the true face of the forest. Mangled corpses and blood were scattered throughout the forest, while not piled up everywhere. 1 or 2 corpses of ninja from both sides could be seen every 20 or 30 meters. Han-kun, thank goodness you came to support us. Otherwise, the losses would have been enormous. Upon seeing Gekko Han, Hyuga Shoyan and Uchiha Fugaku both breathed a sigh of relief. With him here, the war against the hidden mist was practically a sure win. Their clansmen would suffer fewer casualties, and they were grateful that Gekko-han had been sent to the Hidden Mist battlefield. Lord Shoin, Lord Fugaku, I received news of this while on another mission and rushed here. I wasn't assigned here. After stabilizing the situation here, I have to return to my mission. Looking at the two before him, Gekko had to pour cold water on their hopes. Hearing Yu Guanghan's words, the two were immediately disappointed, not so much for Yu Guanghan himself, but for the village not sending him here. Sorry, let's clean up the battlefield and collect the bodies first. After stabilizing the situation here, I have to leave. Seeing the two disappointed people, Yu Guanghan could only say helplessly. The battlefield was quickly cleaned up, and the wounded ninjas began to receive treatment. The bodies of Konoha ninjas were carried together and arranged in several rows, including the body of Hyuga Shinosuke. When Yu Guanghan saw Hyuga Shinosuke's mangled headless body, he couldn't help but feel sad again. This chatterbox was finally dead, but why couldn't he be happy? It was like there was one less fly buzzing in his ear. This is war. Seeing the sad Yu Guanghan, Uchiha Fugaku patted Yu Guanghan on the shoulder. In war, sacrifice is inevitable. Alice. I wonder when this war will finally end. Upon hearing this, Yu Guanghan sighed and turned to ask, Lord Fugaku, what are the casualties? Alice. Upon hearing this, Uchiha Fugaku couldn't help but sigh as well. More than 1,200 ninjas were killed, and more than 800 were wounded. Fortunately, you arrived in time, otherwise the number would probably have more than doubled. However, Kirigakure also suffered heavy casualties. We found more than 800 Kirigakure ninja corpses on the battlefield. Based on the wounds, about 600 of them were killed by you. We will report these achievements to the village truthfully. No, please distribute my achievements to the fallen ninjas. Their families need them more. Yu Guanghan shook his head. I just hope this war can end soon. I knew I hadn't misjudged you. I will discuss this with the other clan heads. In addition, I hope you can become the fourth Hokage. My Uchiha clan also hopes to support you as an ally in becoming the fourth Hokage, Uchiha Fugaku said with a smile, expressing his desire to form an alliance. It turns out that the Uchiha clan's decision to support Gekko-han as the fourth Hokage was his own. Although he was also a candidate for the fourth Hokage, he had the fewest supporters. Knowing he had no chance of becoming the fourth Hokage, he chose to give up and instead support someone most beneficial to the Uchiha clan. Compared to other candidates, Gekko-han was undoubtedly the most suitable. Although he hadn't personally met Gekko-han, Gekko-han was someone who frequently visited the Uchiha clan. Obito was one of his best friends, showing that Gekko-han wasn't incompatible with the Uchiha clan. Moreover, Gekko-han possessed immense strength and prestige, being one of the most admired among commoner ninjas and one of the most promising candidates to become the fourth Hokage. More importantly, Gekko-han was born into an ordinary ninja family in a small clan, not even the clan head's child, and was backed by his own clan's power. Within Konoha, he didn't bear any other label besides his own clan. Minato Namikaze was from the Hokage lineage. Furthermore, Gekko-han has already matured, and he did so without relying on the village's power. Even Orochimaru only provided him with some assistance and convenience. He wasn't Gekko-han's backer. By the time others discovered Gekko-han's potential, he was already a fully fledged eagle. A buyout would simply be an investment. There are no complex vested interests behind Gekko-han. Although the alliance with the Hyuga clan is somewhat imperfect, it doesn't affect the Uchiha clan's desire to ally with him. Gekko-han becoming Hokage is more beneficial to the Uchiha clan than anyone else becoming Hokage. Once Gekko-han becomes Hokage, if the village's higher-ups want to impose their prejudices against the Uchiha on him, as long as the Uchiha and Hyuga clans are firmly aligned, coupled with Gekko-han's formidable strength, no one can completely influence, let alone control, his mind, not even the third Hokage. The Uchiha clan can definitely break the current awkward situation. Even if Gekko-han didn't become the fourth Hokage, he would still be a powerful ally, which would be very beneficial to the Uchiha clan. Supporting Gekko-han to become the fourth Hokage is a surefire win. If they could form a marriage alliance like the Hyuga clan, that would be even better. As for the conflict with the Hyuga, sometimes interests outweigh conflicts. Didn't the Uchiha ally with the Senju clan in the past? Gekko-han looked closely into Fugaku Uchiha's eyes for a full 3 seconds before smiling and saying, after this mission is over, I will definitely visit the Uchiha. I look forward to that day and will personally welcome you, Fugaku Uchiha replied with a smile. The alliance was already more than halfway done. Lord Madara, The killing machine of the ninja world, Gekko Han, has appeared on the battlefield between Konoha and Kirigakure. The Kirigakure ninja have suffered heavy losses, their once advantageous advantage has almost been reversed, and they have been forced to retreat. In the dimly lit underground space, a white head emerged from the wall, speaking with a somewhat surprised tone. Didn't you say before that brat named Gekko Han was leading a group of Konoha Jinan to suppress bandits all over the Land of Fire? How come he suddenly appeared on the battlefield between Kirigakure and Konoha? A majestic and aged voice echoed in the cave. Deep within the cave, an old man stared dangerously at the white head that had spoken. I was also surprised. According to the messages from my clones, when the Hidden Mist ninjas attacked the Leaf Village ninjas, Gekko Han was in a tavern in the Fire Country's Tansaku Street, drinking with a group of Jinan. But halfway through their drinks, Gekko Han suddenly broke through the tavern's roof and transformed into a giant puppet, rapidly flying towards the battlefield between Hidden Mist and Leaf Village. Within 3 minutes, perhaps even 2 minutes, he traversed a distance of nearly 1,000 miles in a straight line, arriving at the battlefield between Leaf Village and Hidden Mist and rescuing his comrades. Did the Iwen ninjas make any moves? If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 129, Suppressing the Fog Shadow. I never expected that person to appear here. The intelligence clearly stated that he was leading a group of Konoha's rookie Jinan on training. How could he suddenly appear here without any warning? On the dark sea, ships rose and fell with the tide. In the cabin of the largest ship in the middle, the third Mizukage rubbed his head, pondering the next strategy for the war. Moonlight Han, a figure who caused headaches for all the ninja villages, was only a 12-year-old boy. His immense strength and alchemical bloodline limit, seemingly born for war, made him the #1 enemy of all the ninja villages. Whenever Moonlight Han appeared on the battlefield, the war would be dominated by him. His powerful combat abilities could even fundamentally reverse the course of a war. Tsunagakure was the most realistic example. The moment Moonlight Han appeared on the battlefield, he completely abandoned direct combat, because victory was impossible. The best way to deal with Moonlight Han now was to disperse and fight. Boom! Violent explosions rang out one after another, echoing like rolling thunder without ceasing. The whistling of heavy artillery shells echoed incessantly through the sky, streaks of crimson light falling like meteors. The crimson flames mercilessly devoured the Kirigakure ninja stationed along the coast, shrapnel riddling the surrounding area with holes. Kirigakure ninja were torn to shreds in the explosions. Ordinary water-style defenses were utterly ineffective against the shells of these 150mm cannons capable of destroying meter-thick concrete fortifications. Not good. On the sea, hearing the continuous explosions, the third Mizukage rushed out of the ship's cabin, his face turning deathly pale as he looked at the coastline already obscured by blasts. They should have retreated further away as quickly as possible, but the third Mizukage hadn't given the order immediately. His fundamental oversight was that he hadn't anticipated that Konoha, suffering even greater casualties, would organize a counterattack in such a short time. In just 2 minutes, the coastline had been reduced to scorched earth, with only a handful of Kirigakure ninja surviving. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the whistling of cannonballs echoed continuously above the fleet. Boom! One after another, cannonballs, carrying immense force, rained down on the ships and the surrounding area, exploding in bursts and creating massive splashes, tearing large holes in the vessels. Get away from the coast immediately. Protect the ships. Don't let them be destroyed. Use water release to speed up the evacuation. The third Mizukage anxiously issued the order, his hands constantly forming hand seals. Water release, water wall. The third Mizukage personally activated the barrier, creating a massive water wall that rose 30 meters high in front of the ships, 4 or 5 meters thick. However, even this water wall was highly unstable under the bombardment of cannonballs. Huge amounts of water exploded against the water wall and fell into the sea. Although this water wall, personally created by the third Mizukage, blocked the cannonballs aimed at the ships, it was constantly in danger of collapsing and turning into water. Fortunately, this was on the open sea, allowing the water walls to be continuously replenished. Other ships also erected walls of water or even stronger ice walls. But these were far inferior to the massive water wall erected by the third Mizukage. Although more numerous, They couldn't withstand the continuous bombardment of heavy artillery shells, constantly being blasted into water droplets and ice fragments. Some shells even missed, further damaging the ships. Half an hour later, when the Kirigakure ships had retreated 30 miles from the coastline, the bombardment finally ceased. However, of the original 60 large ships and 180 small ships, less than half remained, and even those remaining were battered and tattered, seemingly on the verge of being swallowed by the sea. On the sea, countless ship fragments and bloodied corpses rose and fell with the waves. Thousands of Kirigakure survivors, having survived the destruction of their ships, desperately waded through the seawater, chasing after the retreating vessels. Amazing, on the shore, over 2,000 Konoha ninja stared wide-eyed at the mist village ships that had disappeared into the dark sea. Looking at the moonlit Han and the 30 cannons it had built, their eyes were filled with profound shock. The moonlit Han was not something an army could handle, only the strong could confront it. Lord Han, Hyuga Shoin, couldn't hide his astonishment, and was overjoyed. His ally was comparable to the army of a powerful nation. Uchiha Fugaku was also delighted. His choice had indeed been right. The power of the moonlit Han could completely help the Uchiha clan escape their current predicament in Konoha. They'll be back soon. Have everyone prepare for battle. We absolutely cannot let Kirigakure land. I'll go and inflict further casualties on them. Seeing Hyuga Shoin's gaze upon him, Gekko Han confidently declared, transforming into Megatron, leaping into the air, and then into a Cybertronian fighter jet. In the blink of an eye, he rapidly flew towards the depths of the sea, towards the retreating Kirigakure. His speed was so great, 1,000 meters per second, that no ninja could possibly catch him. He needs to be a powerful flying ninja, and incredibly fast, the Konoha ninja silently added to their minds as they watched Gekko Han fly away. However, flying ninjas were already rare, let alone those who could catch up to Gekko Han. Even the third Tsuchikage couldn't. Once Gekko Han took to the skies, he would have an inherent advantage, making him virtually invincible. Moonlight Han, Konoha has truly produced an extraordinary figure. On the wrecked ship, looking at the remaining vessels and the mist village ninja constantly catching up and boarding them, the third Mizukage sighed. This terrifying figure was comparable to those two. If this person didn't die, the 4 great nations, the 4 great ninja villages, and all the smaller nations and villages would have nowhere to survive. Lord Mizukage, our ships probably won't last much longer. The middle-aged Hazuki Minetara walked to the third Mizukage's side with a bitter expression, voicing his worries. Although the remaining ships hadn't sunk, they couldn't withstand much wind and waves. Ninjas couldn't stand on the sea indefinitely using chakra. Have the Mizuki clan ninja create an ice island, the third Mizukage ordered. Moonlight Han was probably waiting for them to return to the shore, and returning would only result in greater losses. Whoosh! Suddenly, the whistling sound of a heavy object falling echoed in the dark night sky. Water release. Water wall. Ice release. Ice wall. Hearing the whooshing sound from the sky, a series of water walls rapidly rose from a ship, then quickly transformed into ice walls. Bang! However, such ice walls were only a meter or 2 thick. How could they withstand a 1,000-kilogram bomb falling from the sky? Boom! The explosions rang out, and the entire ship was instantly engulfed in flames. Breathe! In the sky, a huge black shadow swiftly swooped down towards the fleet. It was Megatron, who had dropped the heavy bomb and turned to dive. Whoosh! 2 AIM-9L Sidewinder missiles were already launched from Megatron's wings, rapidly heading towards the ships on the sea. Chapter 130. The killing machine has developed its own thoughts. Defend. Abandon ship. Seeing the 2 AIM-9L Sidewinder missiles hurtling towards them in the night sky, trailing fiery exhaust, the hidden mist ninjas on the wrecked ship screamed in terror. Some activated defensive ninjutsu, while others chose to abandon ship. A deafening explosion echoed through the sky, turning into flames that burned the heavens. Water release. Water rush wave. The third Mizukage maintained his hand seals. On the sea behind him, 2 arm-thick jets of water shot out like high-pressure water jets, first deflecting the 2 rockets, and then cutting towards Megatron, who was hurtling towards them. Unfortunately, even these high-pressure water jets capable of deflecting rockets were far inferior to Megatron, who was traveling at 3 times the speed of sound. Megatron was not incapable of dodging his launched rockets. The roar of aircraft cannons filled the sky as Megatron, diving down, not only kept the third Mizukage Hajime, from even catching a whiff of its exhaust, but also rapidly approached the ship on the sea surface during its spinning dive. A hail of bullets rained down on a dilapidated large ship. PFFT, PFFT, PFFT. In the blink of an eye, the ship was engulfed in splinters of wood and blood mist. The power of the large caliber machine guns shredded the hit and miss ninja into pieces. The ship became even more mangled. Boom, but it wasn't over yet. After firing, two 200-kilogram bombs were launched from Megatron's belly. The bombs, delivered during the dive, accurately struck the ship, exploding at close range. The ship was reduced to fireballs and debris, the ninjas on board completely engulfed. Megatron had already disappeared into the distance once more. Damn it! Abandoned ship, everyone, into the sea. Seeing Megatron turn back in the sky, the third Mizukage was helpless. His fastest ninjutsu was the high-pressure water blast. Even the fastest water blast couldn't catch Megatron. Even with his many powerful water-style ninjutsu, he had no room to use them. Receiving the Mizukage's order, the remaining Kurigakure ninja dared not hesitate. Before Megatron, they couldn't even muster the will to resist. They quickly plunged into the sea, diving deeper. The roar of machine guns continued in the sky, and many Kurigakure ninja who hadn't yet submerged became targets for the aircraft. Blood stained the sea surface. Even at 10 meters deep, the bullets from the large-caliber aircraft machine guns still retained enough power to kill them. Soon, not a single Kurigakure ninja remained on the surface. Whoosh, Megatron, like a giant dragon coiled in the sky, constantly surveyed the sea. Any hit-and-miss ninja who couldn't hold their breath and surfaced immediately became his target. Only after an hour, confirming that the hit-and-miss ninja had submerged, did Megatron fly away, leaving behind a large number of corpses floating in the sea. After all, the energy consumption was simply too great. Lord Tsuchikage, Gekko Han has left, and his whereabouts are currently unknown. Yesterday, he suddenly broke through the roof of the tavern and hurriedly flew away. Something urgent must have happened. The Konoha Jinin and 6 Konoha Chunin are still in Tansaku Town and haven't left. In the forest near Tansaku Town, an Iwa ninja dressed as a farmer knelt respectfully, reporting the information he had gathered. No more. This is truly a golden opportunity, don't you think, third Raikage? Hearing this, the third Tsuchikage nodded and turned to the tall, dark-skinned, white-haired middle-aged man not far away. This forest also teemed with Iwa and Kumo ninja, each looking formidable, and included numerous Kumo and Iwa and Bu. After killing Gekko Han, half of his body will belong to Kumagakure, the third Raikage said. Gekko Han's formidable threat had brought these two men, who disliked each other, together. There are no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. Gekko Han's survival was the greatest threat to their interests. Lord Hyuga, Lord Fugaku, it's up to you now. I still have over 50 Jinin who need my leadership. In the Konoha Kihara command post, Gekko Han said with a wry smile to the two men before him. These two were the commanders. Hyuga was the commander-in-chief, and Uchiha Fugaku was the deputy commander. It's not hard to see that this arrangement also reflects the village's intention to suppress the two clans and exacerbate their conflicts. The Uchiha, skilled in fire manipulation, are pitted against the numerous Kurigakure ninjas, primarily using water-style techniques, and the Sharingan is also somewhat countered by Kurigakure. It's as if they think the sacrifices aren't enough. Then, the Byakugan counters Kurigakure. However, the Hyuga clan isn't faring much better. The Hyuga, practicing gentle fist and pressure point techniques, are at a significant disadvantage against the Kaguya clan, who possess powerful taijutsu in the Shikatsu Myaku, corpse bone pulse. The Hazuki clan also somewhat counters the Hyuga, their water-based bodies making it difficult for the Hyuga to find pressure points. The Uchiha, in turn, have some advantage over both clans. Then, the Mizuki clan has some advantage over the Uchiha. But the Hyuga, in turn, counters the Mizuki. This is truly a secret Konoha tactic. Mutual restraint ensures neither clan is at a significant disadvantage while inflicting heavy casualties on both sides. The villagers really don't forget internal strife even when fighting external enemies. Sigh. It's a good thing you came to our aid in time. Hearing this, the two sighed. It seemed Gekko Han wouldn't be sent here again. They knew perfectly well the village's intention in sending their two clans to fight the hit-and-miss ninja, but they had no choice. Moreover, they had to expose their discord to the other higher-ups. Now, the village seemed to be targeting Gekko Han, sending him to lead Jinan to suppress bandits, abandoning their huge advantage on the battlefield. Or perhaps, the killing machine had developed its own mind, alerting some Fortunately, they had reached a preliminary consensus. Actually, you were fully capable of ending this war single-handedly, weren't you? Uchiha Fugaku said, looking at Gekko-han. Like this fight against the hidden mist, Gekko-han could have easily flown to the headquarters of various ninja villages to cause trouble, and could have overwhelmed the ninja forces of any country. To kill Gekko-han, one would have to catch up, but why hadn't he done so? This made him ponder. Beside him, Hyuga Shoin remained silent, knowing somewhat of the reasons behind it all. Even if Moonlight Hand's immense strength is enough to end the war, what then? Will he become an enemy of the village? Chapter 131 Trap. Damn it, how come there are so many Iwe ninja? What are the people at the front doing? They let so many Iwe ninja slip through, in Tansaku Street, when Yumino Iru and other Konoha ninjas, who were strolling around, saw 50 or 60 Iwe ninja suddenly rush out from all sides and surround them. Their faces turned pale. They cursed inwardly. The intelligence was right after all. Konoha's future generation has indeed been concentrated here. Konoha's higher-ups are really stupid. Otherwise, we wouldn't have found such a good opportunity. If we wipe you all out, Konoha's next generation will be in jeopardy. Ha ha ha. Looking at the Konoha ninjas surrounded in the middle, the Iwe ninjas didn't rush to attack. They all loudly mocked the stupidity of Konoha's higher-ups. Bastards! Hearing the Iwe ninjas' laughter, Asuma and the other Genin clenched their fists. By capturing you, we can definitely get a lot in exchange. These Konoha Genin are all the next generation of Konoha? Oh, who do I see among them? Isn't that Asuma? He's the third Hokage's son, the crown prince of Konoha? Quite the big fish. I wonder if your third Hokage will go crazy if he sees your corpse. Ha ha ha. Looking at the angry Konoha Genin, the Iwe ninja continued to laugh loudly. On the coast of the Land of Fire. The village can't keep me hidden forever, and everyone on the battlefield will definitely not allow this to happen. This war still needs my strength. This training with the Genin is my ticket to competing for the fourth Hokage. After training these Genin, I should be able to go back to the battlefield. At that time, I will end this war as quickly as possible, and my reputation should reach a new peak. Surpassing the third Hokage is inevitable. At that time, even if the higher-ups want to suppress me, they won't be able to. After hearing Uchiha Fugaku's words, Gekko-han said with a smile. One must eat one bite at a time, otherwise one might choke. He could subdue other ninja villages with force, but becoming the Hokage of Konoha couldn't be done that way, otherwise, he'd only leave a gruesome image. Although he didn't care about such things, there were still many people in Konoha he cared about. We'll wait for that day to come, Uchiha Fugaku said with a smile. According to Gekko-han, once the time was right, Gekko-han becoming Hokage would be a certainty. That day won't be long. Sorry, Gekko-han said with a smile, but before he could finish, his expression changed, and he hastily apologized before transforming into Megatron and flying away in a hurry. His mission went wrong. Hopefully, it wasn't the higher-ups who did this. Watching Gekko-han suddenly fly away, Uchiha Fugaku and Hyuga Shoin exchanged a glance, their faces turning grim. If something happened to those Genin, Gekko-han would undoubtedly bear a huge stain on his reputation. If this matter was related to the village's higher-ups, it would be extremely disappointing. On the short street, a minute passed, but the Iwe ninjas merely surrounded the Konoha Genin, mocking them, without making a single move. These Iwe ninjas are using us as bait. Their target is Lord Han. Ono-iru, realizing the problem, looked even more grim. You still have time to surrender. You shouldn't want the third Hokage's son to die here, the Iwe Jonin leading the Chunin shouted. Boom! Before the Iwe Jonin could finish speaking, Megatron landed powerfully. His massive metal body standing before the Konoha ninjas like a war god. Buzz buzz buzz, the Gatling gun roared in the next second. 4 streams of bullets rained down on the Iwe ninjas surrounding the Konoha ninjas in 4 directions. Many Iwe ninja were riddled with bullets before they could even react. Within seconds or two, 20 out of 50 or 60 Iwe ninja were dead. The remaining ninja desperately fled into the surrounding houses, firing kunai indiscriminately at the Konoha Genin. The Gatling gun roared incessantly, accompanied by the deafening roar of hand cannons. One after another, the fleeing Iwe ninja were subjected to the merciless slaughter by Gekko-han, and the surrounding houses were being destroyed relentlessly. Gekko-han's actions stunned the Genin. Watching the houses being destroyed and the explosions around them, they realized the destructive power was beyond what one person could achieve. It was practically an entire army. Cloud and lightning barrier technique, earth barrier technique, Before Gecko Han could finish off the remaining Iwa ninja, two massive barriers began to rise from all sides, forming a cube that covered an area with a diameter of 300 meters. The blue barriers shone like lightning. A yellowish-brown barrier rose almost a meter away from the blue barrier, forming a double-layered barrier with a blue lightning barrier. Looking at the rising barriers around him, Megatron, now transformed into Moonlight Man, frowned. He stopped chasing the abandoned Iwa ninja and fired his hand cannon directly at the barrier. Buzz! A strange buzzing sound rang out. The two cannonballs Megatron fired actually stopped after gradually breaking through the barrier, hovering in the air and gradually turning red. Boom! The next moment, the two stopped cannonballs exploded. It's the magnetic force and heating of lightning. I didn't expect even the Cloud Ninja would get involved. The second layer of barrier behind should be an Earth release barrier. Analyzing in his mind, Megatron's gaze fell on the Konoha Jinan around him. The Iwa ninja surrounded these Konoha Jinan, their purpose being to use them as bait to lure him into an ambush. He had arrived too hastily and had no time to scout. He had indeed rushed in head first, and the situation was very passive. The magnetic force and heating of the lightning release barrier could effectively interfere with his attacks, and the Earth release barrier must also be extremely sturdy, making it extremely difficult to break through and escape. Moreover, the Cloud Ninja and Iwa Ninja wouldn't just trap him and be done with it. The upcoming attacks would definitely be very dangerous, and he also had to protect these Jinan, not for any other reason than that his best friend, Might Guy, was inside. There are still nearly 2.5 million energy points. Looking at the page in his mind again, Moonlighton began to think 2.5 million energy points seemed like a lot, but considering that the Iwa Ninja and Cloud Ninja were targeting him and were prepared, 2.5 million energy points might not actually be enough. What is that? An exclamation rang out behind Megatron. With the exclamation, Megatron looked back at the edge of the barrier behind him and saw a huge black sphere gradually forming. Damn it, it's a tailed beast ball, Megatron cursed directly, his metallic body leaping up and rapidly transforming in the sky. Next, we'll go to the timeline of the 800 arc, where Naruto will temporarily come to a close. Chapter 132 Nuclear Warfare Fortress. Why would the Cloud Ninja and the Iwa Ninja team up? Because they're natural counters. Of the 4 ninja villages that oppose Konoha, the Cloud Ninja is the most effective counter to the Moon Release Ninjutsu. The Moon Release Ninjutsu is immune to lightning release techniques. Not only is it completely immune, but it can also absorb them to replenish its own power. The Cloud Ninja, on the other hand, only possesses lightning release techniques, swordsmanship, and cloud flow techniques, both close quarters combat. For ordinary ninjas to engage the Moon Release Ninjutsu in close combat is tantamount to suicide, even relying on numbers to get close is difficult. If the Moon Release Ninjutsu appeared on the battlefield against a Cloud Ninja, the Cloud Ninja could simply surrender. At least half of their ninjas wouldn't be qualified to stand before the Moon Release Ninja. They couldn't even wear him down in a war of attrition. In the sky, Megatron's massive metallic body continued to roll and grow larger, gradually enveloping all the Konoha ninjas like a circle. At the edge of the barrier, a black energy sphere quickly accumulated. Accompanied by howling winds, the tailed beast ball, a full 10 meters in diameter, hurtled towards the gathered Konoha Jinan. Either Gecko Han would protect these Jinan and withstand the tailed beast ball head-on, or they would be killed first. As for the Iwa ninja within the barrier, they knew from the beginning they were expendable. Their mission was complete. It's over. Watching the rapidly approaching tailed beast ball, even though they didn't know what it was, it didn't stop the Konoha Jinan and Chunin from feeling its terror. The palpitations even made them stop breathing. Boom, rumble, violent explosions resounded within the barrier, almost engulfing all the space within it. Even the barrier itself rippled, like firecrackers thrown into a soda can. The power of the tailed beast ball amplified within the barrier. Increased chakra output. We must maintain the barrier. We absolutely cannot let the barrier collapse. Outside the double-layered barrier, feeling the tremors, hundreds of ninjas in ambush surrounding it desperately channeled their chakra into the barrier amidst shouts, maintaining its integrity. They would not allow the barrier to disappear until they had recovered Moonlight Hand's body. As the aftershocks of the explosion slowly dissipated, all the Cloud and Iwa ninjas carefully peered into the barrier. Inside, the buildings that had once stood in the short-range area had been completely leveled, trees and houses had vanished, leaving only thick smoke and a desolate plain. Unfortunately, as the smoke from the explosion gradually dissipated, a massive shadow gradually emerged at the very center of the barrier, where the tailed beast ball had struck. The tailed beast ball had been withstood by the opponent. As the smoke gradually died down, the Cloud and Iwa ninjas outside finally saw the massive shadow inside, a huge semicircular reinforced concrete building, 30 meters high and 50 meters in diameter. This circular building also had several protruding platforms. Many windows were also closed. Although some were destroyed in the recent tailed beast ball explosion, the fortress is being repaired at a visible speed. Small anti-nuclear warfare fortress, a war fortress from the future, with 15-meter thick reinforced concrete walls. An internal space with a diameter of 20 meters, 3 layers. Materialization consumes 100,000 energy points, equipped with an electrical system, 20 turrets, 50 anti-aircraft turrets, and 200 machine gun ports. Weapons and ammunition materialization requires additional energy points and can be repaired using energy points. It cannot defend against a direct hit from a strategic-level nuclear bomb, over 5,000 tons of yield, but it can withstand a direct hit from a tactical-level nuclear bomb of the highest yield, under 3,000 tons. The boy's yield is approximately 17,000 tons, which is relatively small for a strategic-level bomb. Based on the explosion scale in the anime, the yield of a normal tailed beast ball is set to less than 2,000 tons. The hollow dog cannon doesn't even reach 200 tons. That was close. I thought we were doomed. What is this? Inside the war fortress, the Konoha ninjas who had survived the ordeal stared blankly at the interior of the fortress under the lights, as if they had been transported from one place to another. This is a newly developed defensive ninjutsu. Amid everyone's surprise and confusion, Gekko-han emerged from the concrete wall like a ghost, uttering words that astonished everyone. "What was that black thing just now?" Yuminoaru asked. Just recalling the palpitation he had just felt made his back break out in a cold sweat. "Tailed beast ball," Gekko-han said. Boom. Before Moonlight Han could finish speaking, the fortress shook again. Another tailed beast ball struck the fortress. Boom. Before the shaking subsided, it intensified again, and without a doubt, a third tailed beast ball hit the fortress. "More than one tailed beast," Moonlight Han murmured, then said to everyone, "This can't go on. You stay here, I'll fight the enemy." With that, Moonlight Han merged back into the wall. He consumed a large amount of energy points to repair the fortress while heading towards the top. Seeing Moonlight Han merge back into the wall, everyone felt a little more at ease. It really is a tortoise shell. There's no earth-release ninjutsu with stronger defense than this. Outside the barrier, looking at the fortress that had reappeared in shadow from the smoke and dust, the third Tsuchikage, Anoki, couldn't help but sigh. 3 tailed beast balls in a row hadn't even destroyed this tortoise shell. Protecting those burdens, Gekko-han's death was inevitable. "What a foolish decision," the third Raikage, scoffed. In this desperate situation, expending so much chakra to create such a powerful defense to protect those Jinan was the most foolish choice. However, this also gave them a greater chance of killing Gekko-han. Under the relentless bombardment of the 4-tailed beasts, even if Gekko-han was strong, he would perish today. To eliminate Gekko-han, their greatest threat, the Iwa and Kumo ninjas brought not only their 2-cage but also a 4-tailed beasts. After all, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If they weren't worried that the barrier couldn't withstand the simultaneous launch of tailed beast balls by the 4-tailed beasts, allowing Gekko-han to escape, they would have definitely launched all 4-tailed beast balls at once. Inside the barrier, at its edge, new tailed beast balls had already formed. Simultaneously, new tailed beast balls were beginning to condense. 2 tails, 4 tails, 5 tails, and 8 tails. The Iwa and Kumo ninja really spared no expense. At the top of the war fortress, Moonlight Han rose from the reinforced concrete, his face grim as he watched the tailed beast balls coalescing from 4 directions within the barrier. The situation was worse than he had imagined. Without his repairs, this fortress probably wouldn't last much longer. Looks like I'll have to use that. I didn't want to reveal this so soon. Watching the new tailed beast balls about to launch from the edge of the barrier, Moonlight Han sighed. His body changed again. Guess what the next technology will be? Chapter 133 Biotechnology, Unit 01. What is that? Staring at the giant in purple-green armor within the barrier, the Cloud Ninja and Iwa Ninja were stunned, a terrifying sense of dread rising within them. Boom! A blackish-purple tailed beast ball shot out from the edge of the barrier, reaching the purple giant in the blink of an eye. Bang! However, this time the tailed beast ball didn't explode. To everyone's astonishment, The massive purple mecha simply raised one hand to block the incoming tailed beast ball. Upon closer inspection, the tailed beast ball didn't touch the giant's hand. Between the giant's hand and the tailed beast ball was a thin, yellow, multi-hexagonal membrane-like substance. Under the impact of the tailed beast ball, that substance didn't even dent. At field, the power of mental rejection. What the hell is this thing? Looking at the purple giant who blocked the tailed beast ball with a single hand, a cloud ninja muttered, his hands maintaining the barrier involuntarily lowering. Daruaka Hisa, what are you doing? Maintain the barrier. This is the time to fight to the death, a loud shout rang in the ears of the cloud ninja, his companion yelling. He had a premonition that if that thing inside came out, everyone would die. Reikage, don't die later, the third Tsuchikage, Anoki, solemnly said to the Reikage, looking at the purple giant, he remembered someone who had once been so powerful that no one could resist him. Inside the barrier, the purple giant waved its hand to block the tailed beast ball, sending it flying straight towards the four tails, which was condensing its tailed beast ball in another direction of the barrier. 100,000 energy points left. We must end this battle within 3 minutes, otherwise, inside the core of the purple armored giant, Gecko Han, sitting in the cockpit, thought to himself. After blocking the tailed beast ball, he immediately chased after the tailed beast ball that had been knocked away, rushing towards the four tails in one corner of the barrier, his speed no slower than the flying tailed beast ball. Biotechnology, EVA, Unit 01. Height 81 meters, weight approximately 3,600 tons. EVA is the so-called ultimate general-purpose humanoid decisive battle weapon, a giant humanoid weapon, a replica of the Angels. Unit 01 is a replica of Lilith. The outer armor is not actually armor, but a restraint device. Manifestation consumes 1.8 million energy points. In normal state, it can utilize the at field to a limited extent, consuming 3,000 to 30,000 energy points per minute of combat. Note, do not continue using if energy points are insufficient. Unit 01 without power and not going berserk is a soulless Unit 01. In the power-off state, it will 100% go berserk, and in the berserk state, there is a 5% chance of further awakening. Berserk state consumes 5 million energy points to control the berserk state, consuming 1,000 to 3,000 energy points per second. Note, controllable berserk state, do not continue using if energy points are insufficient, otherwise the awakening probability will increase to 50%. Unless you want to trigger an impact, seeing the incoming tailed beast ball, the four tails, which was in the process of forming a new one, had no time to dodge and could only watch helplessly as the two tailed beast ball struck its face. Boom! A terrifying explosion resounded within the barrier, causing it to tremble violently once more. Whoosh! A giant hand clad in purple armor passed through the explosion, grabbing the four tails' disfigured head. Like an adult grabbing a newborn monkey, the four tails, less than 30 meters tall, was lifted by its head by Unit 01 and slammed against the barrier behind it. Boom! The still trembling barrier shuddered even more violently. PFFT, outside the barrier, the Iwa ninja maintaining the stability of the Earth release barrier collectively coughed up blood. Boom! However, this wasn't the end of it. The four tails, already pressed against the barrier, received a powerful punch from Unit 01. This punch bulged its eyeballs. Its tongue was forced out of its mouth due to the immense force. The tremors of the barrier intensified. PFFT, outside the barrier, the Iwa ninja collectively coughed up blood again, many immediately fainting. The barrier became even more unstable. Quick, backup personnel, maintain the barrier. Seeing this, Anoki quickly shouted orders to the Iwa ninja on their deaths. Upon receiving the order, more Iwa ninja rushed to the edge of the barrier, channeling their chakra. The number of people maintaining the barrier actually increased. Son Goku, are you alright? Inside the four tails, Roshi asked with concern. 2 more punches and I'll be in trouble. The four tails answer was simple. 2 more punches and it would likely lose its tail beast form and retract into Roshi's body. Whoosh! Just as Unit 01 was about to deliver its third punch, 2 tailed beast balls shot towards its back from 2 directions. Boom! A violent explosion resounded within the barrier, the terrifying blast causing Unit 01 to press against it, while the four tails was squeezed between Unit 1's massive body. The explosion had barely subsided when the 5 tails, Kakuto, charged in from the side, pushing the four tails Unit 01 back several steps, allowing the four tails, Son Goku, to catch its breath. The 5 tails, Kakuto, Possesses 5 pure white tails and is a white steed composed of a dolphin's head, deer antlers, and a horse's body. Behind Unit 01, the 2 tails, Matatabi, and the 8 tails, Jayuki, arrive, surrounding Unit 01 along with the 4 tails, Son Goku, and the 5 tails, Kakuto. Surround me. HMPH, within Unit 1's core, looking at the 4-tailed beasts surrounding it, Gecko Han coldly snorted. Click, with a soft sound, a dagger popped out from Unit 1's shoulder armor. Unit 01 grabbed the dagger and immediately charged towards the 4 tails and 5 tails, high-frequency vibrating dagger. Seeing Unit 01 charging towards them, the 4 tails and 5 tails dared not engage in close combat and immediately ran away, while the 2 tails and 8 tails immediately began to condense tailed beast balls in their mouths. Bang! The next moment, Unit 01 didn't pursue the 4 tails and 5 tails that had dodged it. Instead, it charged a few more steps to the other side of the barrier, using the momentum to stab its high-frequency vibrating dagger into the barrier and then rammed it with its shoulder. Crack! Bang! With a sound like shattering glass, the barrier was pierced and shattered by Unit 1's impact, leaving half of its body exposed. PFFT, at the edge of the barrier, the Iwa ninja maintaining it immediately coughed up blood. Nearly half of them fainted. The barrier's light dimmed considerably. Bang bang! Loud hammering sounds rang out as Unit 1's giant hand relentlessly pounded the barrier, creating more cracks and larger openings. We absolutely cannot let him break through the barrier, or the consequences will be unimaginable. Limit debending technique, Inoki shouted anxiously, his hands forming hand seals, conjuring a white cylinder between them. Gecko Han's power exceeded his expectations. Gecko Han might already possess strength comparable to those two from back then. Under Inoki's command, the Iwa ninja, already coughing up blood, desperately maintained the barrier. Lightning release, lightning binding pillar technique. The Cloud Ninja abandoned the lightning release barrier, focusing all their efforts on the lightning release binding technique. From the ground, massive pillars crackling with lightning rose continuously around Unit 01. They didn't expect the lightning release to harm Unit 01, they only hoped these pillars would bind its movements. The 8 tails and 2 tails cancelled their tailed beast balls and charged towards Gecko Han along with the 4 tails and 5 tails. The tailed beast balls weren't as destructive to Unit 01 as expected. Instead, with the barrier broken, the tailed beast balls would kill many of their own allies and further weaken the bindings on Unit 01. Once this thing awakens, even Amaterasu would have to kneel. Chapter 134 Unit 01 is out of power. That's the limit separation technique. A sense of crisis suddenly rose in Gecko Han's heart. Unit 01 stopped struggling and looked up in the direction of the third Tsuchikage. In the third Tsuchikage's hand, a huge white cone had already shot out from Inoki's hand, piercing towards Unit 1's head. At field full activation, facing Inoki's attack, Gecko Han was not overconfident. With his at field fully activated, a wall composed of multiple hexagonal yellow lights instantly appeared in front of Unit 01. Bang! The next moment, under the expectant gazes of the Iwa and Kumo ninja, Inoki's limit separation technique met the at field, but could not advance an inch, and was deadlocked. Gecko Han's energy points also began to be consumed like flowing water. Bang bang bang! Under the crisis, Unit 1's hands accelerated the destruction of the earth release barrier and rock pillars that were restricting it. In an instant, rock shattered, and the barrier cracked even more. Don't even think about leaving, Baka Yarao. Shigeru Yarao, several pale red octopus tentacles, each with 8 tails, emerged from the broken barrier and wrapped around Unit 1's right arm. This stopped Unit 1's right hand from destroying the barrier and the rock pillar that were restricting it. Unfortunately, under Unit 1's immense power, the 8-tailed octopus, which was only 40 meters tall, was unable to restrain Unit 1's arm. There was even a danger of being carried away by Unit 1's immense power. A pair of furry red giant hands grabbed the tail of the 8-tailed octopus that was holding Unit 1's arm and pulled it back desperately. This guy hurt me a lot. The 4-tailed octopus, Son Goku, came to help. Unfortunately, even with the addition of the 4-tailed octopus's power, it was no longer possible to completely restrain Unit 1's right arm. They were still being dragged towards the barrier. Although I don't like you all, I don't like this guy even more. The 5 tails of the 5-tailed octopus, Kakuto, wrapped around Unit 1's left hand, and the tail of the 2-tailed octopus, Matatabi, also wrapped around the tail of the five-tailed octopus, working together to exert force. Now, both of Unit 1's arms were somewhat restricted. Although not completely, they prevented it from fully unleashing its power and hindered its ability to break free of the multiple restraints on its body. Everyone, you must restrain his movements. By time for the Tsuchikage, the third Raikage roared, activating his lightning release armor and charging towards Unit 01. The four-tailed beasts couldn't restrain that guy for long. Following the Raikage's words, the ninjas who had previously been unable to intervene in the battle all rushed towards Unit 01. Today, they had to kill Gekko-han here, no matter what, or the consequences would be unimaginable. With the power Gekko-han unleashed, no ninja village could withstand his retaliation. Heavy stream explosion, the extremely fast speed exceeded the speed of sound, and the enormous force struck Unit 1's ankle, like being hit by a heavy cannonball, creating a huge sound. It actually has the power of a heavy cannon, Gekko-han thought to himself, raising Unit 1's giant foot. Thump, the giant foot landed, leaving a spiderweb-like crack in the ground. Unfortunately, the Raikage had already reached the other foot of Unit 01. Lightning slaughter horizontal dance. A hand blade wrapped in lightning struck Unit 1's other ankle again, producing an even louder crash. Cracks appeared in the restraining armor on Unit 1's ankle. The giant foot was dragged several meters. Unit 1's body staggered as a result. The field became unstable. Everyone, restrain him. Create an opportunity for Lord Raikage. Seeing the Raikage's power, the Cloud Ninja shouted with renewed vigor, throwing Kune with explosive tags or unleashing earth and water release techniques. Lightning release was an opportunity to aid the enemy. A good opportunity. The third Tsuchikage, Anoki, immediately increased the output of his dust release. This time, he was risking everything, recklessly channeling his chakra. If he failed, he couldn't imagine what kind of scene this terrifying thing would unleash upon its revenge on Iwagakure. As expected of the strongest brute, the power of this attack is comparable to the main cannon of a naval vessel. He mentally assessed the power of the Raikage's attack again, then steered Unit 01 back to its feet. It continued to struggle. Now, it was a tug-of-war between the two sides, Unit 01 against the four-tailed beasts and against a third Tsuchikage. I still have 40,000 energy points left, calculating in his mind. Gekko-han couldn't help but worry, even hesitating whether to give up. Although the explosions of the explosive tags and the Raikage's ninjutsu provided some energy points, compared to the constant drain on his maximum energy reserves, it was simply not enough. Once the energy points were exhausted, things would get really bad. Unit 1's uncontrollable berserk state wasn't something he could stop at will. Time passed second by second. Shattered and broken rock pillars kept reappearing, restricting Unit 1's movement as much as possible. The four-tailed beasts were straining with all their might to hold on to Unit 1's arm. The eight tails and five tails tails were nearly torn off. Claw and hoof prints appeared on the ground. The earth release barrier was also crumbling more and more as Unit 01 struggled and twisted. 75 meters in the air, the dust release and the field remained locked in a stalemate. If the field collapsed, Unit 1's head would be severed by the dust release. If the dust release failed, then the Cloud Ninja and Iwa Ninja would be plunged into an even more difficult battle, possibly even being completely annihilated by Unit 01. 6,000 energy points left, 5,000 energy points, 4,000, 3,000. As the seconds ticked by, Moonlight Ton grew increasingly anxious. There weren't even enough energy points left to repair Unit 1's damage. Seeing the energy points about to run out, Moonlight Han felt despair. Finally, the dust release disappeared first. Damn it, watching the dust release disappear before the field, the hearts of the third Tsuchikage, the third Raikage, the surrounding Cloud and Iwa Ninja, and even the four-tailed beasts sank to the bottom. Having lost their greatest threat to the monster before them, they faced a brutal and arduous battle, possibly even total annihilation, before this monster would invade their village and turn it into a living hell. Run. Can't you see you've already failed? Inside Unit 1's core, looking at the less than 1,000 energy points remaining, Gekko-han roared angrily. He absolutely didn't want to go berserk, not only because the cost to himself was too high, but also because of the world. Keep holding him off. By that Tsuchikage time to recover, with the third Raikage's shout, the Cloud and Iwa Ninja, with a death wish, once again poured all their chakra into Unit 01. It's over. This isn't my fault. With a sigh, the light in Unit 1's core cockpit disappeared. Outside, Unit 01, which had been struggling desperately, suddenly stopped. Its arms hung limply, and the eyes beneath its head armor went dark. Its head drooped. This is? They won. The Cloud Ninja, the Iwa Ninja, the third Tsuchikage, the third Raikage, and the four-tailed beasts were all stunned for a moment upon seeing the now still Unit 01. But only for a moment. They resumed their attack. They wouldn't believe it would end like this until they had dismantled this enormous monster and collected Moonlight Hand's corpse in two halves. Chapter 135 Unit 01 goes berserk. Sorry, this is Chapter 134, I forgot to check. These idiots. Deep within the darkness, as he ventured deeper, Moonlight Han stopped his furious cursing and chuckled. At this moment, Moonlight Han no longer cared whose fault it was. Because if his luck was bad, everything would be over, all his previous efforts would be wasted, and the world would be finished. The reason didn't matter anymore. On Unit 01, the ninjas desperately tried to destroy its restraint armor, hoping to break through and pull Moonlight Han out so they could each take half. Even the four-tailed beasts joined in. Surprisingly, in just a few minutes, they managed to remove some of the armor, exposing the gray flesh inside. Large amounts of blood flowed out as the armor was damaged and flesh was torn open, like a waterfall. Pools of blood formed on the ground. What's going on? Has he really lost the ability to resist? Could he have escaped? Looking at Unit 01, which remained unmoved despite their efforts, the Cloud and Iwa ninjas began to have doubts. However, they dared not let their guard down, maintaining their earth release barrier, which transformed into a single layer, trapping Unit 01 within it, and binding it. However, their initial lightning binding pillar had been replaced by the rock binding coffin technique. Lord Han, we have dragged you down, inside the war fortress. After exploring it for some time, Yumino and a group of Shinans stood at the bulletproof window, their eyes bloodshot and tears streaming down their faces as they watched Unit 01 being dismantled by the Iwa and Cloud ninjas. Han, my comrade of youth, Might Guy cried uncontrollably, hating his own weakness at that moment. Everyone clenched their fists. At that moment, they desperately wanted to rush out, drive away the Iwa and Cloud ninjas, and retrieve Han's body. Unfortunately, outside, there were not only the third Tsuchikage and the third Raikage, but also no fewer than 100 Junin, a couple hundred Chunin, and four-tailed beasts. They knew that for them, as Junin and Chunin, going out would only be suicide missions. They wouldn't even last half a minute before being wiped out, making Gecko Han's sacrifice pointless. At this moment, they hated their own weakness so much. So weak that the Iwa and Kumo ninja were too busy dismantling Unit 01 to send anyone to deal with them. Because the Iwa and Kumo ninja were focused on dismantling Unit 01, no one had time to care about these Konoha Junin hiding in their shells. This feeling of palpitation. Is it a final burst of energy before death? Anoki, who was fully recovering his chakra, frowned and looked at Unit 01, whose armor was being dismantled not far away. A feeling of palpitation suddenly appeared in his heart, and this feeling grew stronger and stronger. Is this guy going to retaliate? The third Raikage, standing atop Unit 01 and trying to damage its facial armor, frowned. He too felt a growing sense of unease, as if something terrible was about to happen. Not only the two Kage, but many Jonin also felt a growing anxiety, an unease akin to the fear they had felt when facing death after narrowly escaping it. The four-tailed beasts also became more cautious, sensing the same unease. In the past, they would have scoffed, what could possibly make them uneasy? But now, having witnessed Unit 1's power, they knew this unease stemmed from the monster before them. Just as the unease in the Iwa and Kumo ninja grew stronger, a green light suddenly shone from Unit 1's darkened eyes. Not good. Intensify the restraints immediately. Everyone, attack. Everyone, retreat. The third Tsuchikage, Anoki, and the third Raikage, shouted almost simultaneously. Just moments before, their unease and fear had intensified dramatically. The intensity of the attack was something they had never experienced in their lives. Almost simultaneously, the four-tailed beasts reacted in unison, desperately gripping Unit 1's limbs. At this moment, they were completely working in tandem with the Jinchuariki. Crack! The instant they shouted, Unit 1's mouth opened, revealing its enormous teeth. A terrifying roar erupted from Unit 1's mouth. The deafening sound caused the surrounding ninjas to instinctively cover their ears. Block, block, the sound of steel plates snapping rang out, and the restraints on Unit 1's outer armor loosened. Bang, a shattering sound followed. The Earth release barrier that had been holding Unit 01 was shattered by its swing, and the Eight Tails, which had been tightly gripping Unit 1's right arm, was also sent flying by the powerful force. This power was more than 5 times greater than before. Crack, crack, the sounds of breaking continued below Unit 1's waist, and the rock pillars restricting its movement instantly crumbled. Dust release, limit destruction technique. Seeing Unit 01 about to break free of its restraints, Inoki disregarded his remaining chakra and fired the white cone at Unit 1's face again. Bang! The field reappeared, blocking Inoki's dust release. The massive arm, no longer bound by the Eight Tails, rose, and in the next moment, seemingly imbued with the power of heaven and earth, it swung down violently. Silent and still, yet the world seemed to change color instantly. How is this possible? All the ninjas stared wide-eyed. Inoki's dust release was actually torn apart and disintegrated by that single swing of the arm. Rumble! A series of loud noises rang out, and 5 massive chasms appeared in the ground from that single swing, each 10 meters wide and a kilometer long. The third Tsuchikage was also sent flying. The surrounding ninjas broke out in a cold sweat. Whoosh! With a flick of the wrist, a gale howled, and the 5 Tails, Kakuno, which was holding Unit 1's other hand, was also flung a kilometer away in the gale. The surrounding ninjas had to raise their hands to resist the gusts of wind generated by Unit 01. Seeing this, the 4 Tails and 2 Tails, who were clinging to Unit 1's left and right legs respectively, released their grip without hesitation and ran. A roar rang out again, as ferocious as a demon in prison for years being unleashed. Whoosh! A black-tailed beast ball shot from the sky, launched by the 8 Tails after being flung away. Boom! The next moment, Unit 01 casually waved its hand, and the tailed beast ball exploded. The explosion at that distance had no effect on Unit 01 whatsoever. At the same time, Unit 1's eyes grew increasingly bright. The green stripes on its purple armor gradually turned red. Unit 01 was entering a deeper level of berserk mode. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 136 Awakening, The Impact Begins. Thanks to Shiang-Sun for the 21,000 coin donation. Damn it, what's wrong with this monster? It's so different from before. No one looked happy watching Unit 01 shatter the tailed beast ball with a wave of its hand. Binding techniques and ninjutsu, they could barely restrain this giant humanoid monster before, but now, it was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Unit 01 raised its arm again, but this time it was aimed at the ninjas on the ground. No, under the horrified gazes of the Cloud and Iwa ninjas, Unit 1's arm swung down fiercely at them. Whoosh! The next moment, a howling wind swept across the land like knives. Grass, trees, houses, ninjas, everything around was instantly sliced away by the wind, leaving only a fan-shaped patch of yellow earth, 2,000 meters long, covered in razor-sharp cuts. My god, at the windows of the war fortress, the Konoha ninjas were also stunned. This power was something they had never even imagined. It was as if a true god had descended to earth. Lord Han must have used some forbidden technique at a great cost, Yuminoiru said sadly, clenching his fists. All of this was to protect them, otherwise, why would he suddenly unleash such power comparable to true god? Hopefully, it wasn't at the cost of his life. Hearing this, the Genin instinctively raised their arms in anticipation. Tsuchikage, are you alright? The third Raikage, activating his lightning release armor, rushed to the side of the heavily injured third Tsuchikage, helping him up and asking with concern. Their relationship wasn't actually that good, but now they had an enemy they were powerless against. It's getting stronger and stronger. We can't stop it now. Have the others retreat. Once we get back, we must submit the surrender agreement as quickly as possible. Hopefully, we can make it in time, the third Tsuchikage said weakly, his eyes devoid of fighting spirit, as the third Raikage helped him up. He thought again of Uchiha Madara, but now, even Uchiha Madara was far less intimidating than Unit 01 had been to him. In fact, not only him, but all the ninjas, even the tailed beasts, had lost their will to fight. Even the third Raikage, known for his recklessness, had lost all fighting spirit. The enemy had transcended the realm of mere creatures. If they were given a technique that could take Unit 01 down with them, they would use it without hesitation. one after another. Unfortunately, they didn't. Even if they had such a technique, they wouldn't be qualified to take Unit 01 down with them. Everyone, retreat, the Raikage roared, hoisting the third Tsuchikage onto his back and beginning a rapid escape. As for the rest, it was all up to fate. As many as they could escape, that was all. He hoped the tailed beasts of the two villages could escape this calamity. He couldn't care less about that now. Under the Raikage's command, all the ninjas began to flee, and even the four-tailed beasts scattered in four directions. At this moment, the purple armor on Unit 01 had turned red, and the light in its eyes was no longer green, but a blood-red glow. The restraints on its shoulders had all been ejected. Watching the fleeing ninjas from both countries and the tailed beasts, Unit 01 let out an indescribable roar, its crimson eyes suddenly shining even brighter. At that moment, the heavens and earth seemed to change color completely. The sky, which had been gradually darkening, became gloomy, covered with dense clouds. Bang! Two bright beams of light shot from Unit 1's eyes, directly towards the fleeing two tails. In an instant, the entire sky seemed to turn black, with only those two beams illuminating the world. This wasn't because the sky and earth had darkened, but because these two beams were so bright that all other light paled in comparison. In a flash, the two beams pierced through the fleeing two tails, Matatabi, and struck a distant mountain. Wherever they passed, even those that didn't touch it, everything around began to melt. Boom! Almost simultaneously, Matatabi, pierced by the beams, exploded into dust. The mountain, tens of kilometers away, was also melted by the beams at the same time. In just a few seconds, a large portion of the 1,000-meter-high mountain was burned away. See also, Thunder Angel. A scorching gale raged wildly. Trees were uprooted, houses were flattened. The terrifying heat seemed to melt everything. Damn it, what the hell is that? At this moment, the fleeing ninjas stopped in their tracks, lying on the ground to shield themselves from the scorching shockwave, or creating craters in the ground to bury themselves. 3 seconds later, the beam disappeared, and the scorching storm slowly subsided. Damn it, I didn't expect such bad luck. It's exactly what I feared. Murphy's lore really doesn't lie. In the dark core of Unit 01, Moonlight Han smiled bitterly. He had encountered this 5% chance on his very first try. Oh my god. A few survivors stood up from the scorching ground, looking at the charred earth around them. At this moment, they even forgot the pain of being burned. What's that? A ninja stared blankly at Unit 01 on the charred earth, then knelt down helplessly. How could anyone possibly win against something like this? This thing shouldn't even exist in this world. More and more ninjas knelt on the ground. Looking at Unit 01 in the distance, they finally understood how foolish they had been. On the scorched earth, Unit 01 had stopped attacking, its massive body rising into the sky. Above Unit 1's head, a huge, bright yellow parallel halo had appeared. Unit 01 was awakening. Is this the power of a god? The third Raikage and the third Tsuchikage emerged from the mound of earth, staring at Unit 01 with its halo in the distance, and stopped all movement. A deep sense of powerlessness engulfed their hearts. Is that becoming a god? Might Guy murmured to himself, expressing the thoughts of everyone inside the war fortress. Under everyone's gaze, the halo above Unit 1's had turned crimson and gradually spread outwards. The restraint armor on its chest shattered, revealing the red apostle core and glowing flesh inside. At that moment, the red halo above Unit 1's head began to spread throughout the world, turning the entire world blood red around it. 6 wings of light finally appeared on Unit 1's back. The impact had begun. Is this the end of the world? Looking at the apocalyptic red world, the third Tsuchikage and the third Raikage murmured together, what's happening? A natural disaster has struck. At the same time, people all over the world simultaneously raised their heads to look at the sky. Under the spreading red halo, the entire world began to turn crimson, oppressive, and filled with fear. This heart-pounding feeling, is the world about to be destroyed? In Konoha, the third Hokage, on the platform of the Hokage building, remained silent. In the end, there are no victors in this war. In the Land of Wind, in Tsunagakure, the newly appointed fourth Kazekage, Raza, looked at the sky and shed tears. If only he had known it would end like this, he should have enjoyed it more. How could this be? Is this world destined to never have peace? In the forest of the Land of Rain, Yohiko, Konan, Nagato, and the rest of Akatsuki felt utterly exhausted. Let's abandon this experiment. In the Land of Grass, at the entrance of a cave, Orochimaru discarded his scalpel. Gazing at the sky, he was lost in thought. If he could live, he would dedicate himself to exploring this world. I wonder what it would be like to transform the pursuits of those madmen in Naruto into the desire to become gods? If you're looking forward to it, I'll write it like this. As for the outline, the content of a work is ever-changing, and the details of the outline are long gone, only the general outline remains. Don't worry. The next chapter will take us to another world. Chapter 137 Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion, another transmigration. Even if this world is to be destroyed, it should be destroyed by my Otsutsuki clan. This is the legacy of our ancestors, beyond the planet, atop the moon, watching the world turn completely blood red. A giant yellow beam of light shot rapidly from the moon, its target the only light on this red planet before it, the very core of the impact. It's over. The world is about to end. Within the dark core of Unit 01, Gecko-Han murmured softly. Having awakened to this level, even if the Sage of Six Paths brothers personally used Shibaku Tensei to seal Kaguya, there would be no chance of sealing her. Because this was the power of a true god, a power far surpassing this world, both in level and scale. The entire blood-red world began to slow. The impact was about to begin. Suddenly, a golden beam of light plummeted from the red sky, its target directly at Unit 01. Unit 01 looked up. Layer upon layer of it fields appeared above its head. Boom. The next second, the golden beam of light fell, directly impacting the it fields. Immediately, layers of the it field began to shatter. Unfortunately, with each layer of it field shattering, a new layer of a field appeared, seemingly endless. This is Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. Will it succeed? In the dark core of Unit 01, Moonlight Han muttered to himself, a hint of expectation in his eyes. Although the yellow beam progressed extremely slowly, it gradually approached Unit 01 flying in the sky. Although he would die if this continued, those he cared about could live. Can it succeed? No, it must succeed. Not only Moonlight Han, but everyone who saw the golden beam was praying. Unfortunately, the final result disappointed Moonlight Han and plunged everyone into despair once more. The golden beam descending from the sky gradually weakened, and only 10 layers of the it field had been destroyed. Indeed, how could the power of mortals possibly contend with the power of gods, even if they call themselves gods? Watching the yellow beam gradually dissipate, Moonlight Han said in disappointment. Boom. The next second after the golden beam dissipated, a sudden change occurred. A powerful energy beam suddenly appeared beneath Unit 1's feet, shattering the earth and engulfing it in the sky almost instantly. The crimson in the sky began to fade, and the flow of time throughout the world returned to normal. It's done. The third Tsuchikage and the third Raikage embraced each other, tears welling in their eyes. Although they didn't know what kind of beings had made the move, the apocalypse was not coming. Not only them, but as the crimson in the sky faded, everyone in the world shed tears. Because the cataclysmic disaster had not struck, it's the power of the dragon vein, Moonlight Han murmured, his consciousness fading into darkness. His energy points were completely depleted, he had no energy left to sustain his activities, the ruined city was charred black, thick smoke billowing, and mangled corpses were everywhere. The bodies of soldiers and civilians lay scattered haphazardly in this desolate city. Clatter, 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 the sound of armored vehicle tracks scraping against the ground echoed through the city, mercilessly crushing the mangled corpses lying in the middle of the road, making the already mangled bodies even more mangled. Whoosh, 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 the sound of orderly footsteps followed behind the armored vehicles. Soldiers in khaki uniforms and green helmets followed in neat formations, panting heavily. The battle was basically over, what remained was the cleanup of the remaining enemies and the final push. Raging flames burned in every corner of the city, engulfing the dead bodies. Cremating the corpses was an effective measure to prevent plague, and also one of the best ways to cover up crimes. In a corner of the dilapidated city, 2 soldiers in khaki uniforms approached the body of a boy. One lifted his hand, the other his foot, intending to lift the boy's body away. However, after some effort, the body was only moved a few centimeters. The 2 soldiers had to put the body down temporarily. Strange, why is this body so heavy? One of the soldiers exclaimed in an unintelligible bird language. Could it be caught on some broken steel bars or something? Another soldier said, walking to the side of the body and attempting to lift it slightly to see what was holding it up. The first attempt failed. Eek, seeing his comrade's expression, the soldier blushed slightly, took a deep breath, and strained to move the boy's body on the ground. Phew. so heavy, unable to budge. The soldier sighed, moved to the other side of the body, and tried again. What's going on? Is it caught on both sides? Still unable to move it, the soldier wondered, crouching down to examine the boy's body closely, trying to find what was holding it up. His comrade also tried to lift the body slightly so his partner could see what was catching it. However, his partner also couldn't turn the body over. The soldier, lying down, naturally couldn't see what was holding the boy's body up. Azul-kun, what's wrong? Just then, two other soldiers who were clearing corpses from the city passed by and asked. This body is probably caught on a broken steel bar from the explosion. We can't lift it, we can't even turn it over. Come and help. Hearing this, the soldier named Azul, who was lying on the ground, looked up and answered, and asked his two passing companions to help. Hearing this, the two passing soldiers nodded and came over, and together with another soldier, they pulled on the boy's body. With all their strength, the three of them finally managed to turn the boy's body over. It's not caught. After turning the body over, the soldiers were stunned. There was only rubble under the body, no broken steel bar or hooks or anything like that. But the weight they had just felt was undeniable. It's still so heavy, one person can't move it at all. One soldier, not believing it, pulled on the boy's arm again, but it barely budged. What's going on? Could it be haunted? The four soldiers were suddenly filled with dread. How about we lift it together and see? Zio suggested. They were uneasy, but felt they were scaring themselves. Perhaps there were other reasons. Okay, the other three soldiers nodded. They decided to try lifting it again. They didn't want it to actually be haunted. Each of the four grabbed a hand or foot and nodded to each other. The corpse was finally pulled up, confirming it wasn't caught on anything, but the weight made their faces change drastically. They slammed the corpse back to the ground, staring in shock. Just holding onto the hands and feet was incredibly difficult. These were soldiers, and even four of them were struggling. The weight must have been 400 or 500 pounds. If it weren't for the gaping wounds revealing flesh and blood, they might have even suspected it was a stone statue. But it was precisely because it wasn't a stone statue that they were even more terrified. When the protagonist returns, the show-off will be very satisfying. Chapter 1 today. Chapter 138, bearing the reputation of a demon. What are you doing? A shout rang out from the street not far away. An officer in a tea-green military uniform, with a samurai sword and pistol at his waist, walked angrily with more than 10 soldiers. Squad leader, there's something strange about this boy's corpse. We can't lift it. Squad leader, this corpse is very eerie. Upon seeing the squad leader, two soldiers quickly straightened up and answered, while the other two also stood up straight and nodded repeatedly. Slap. Slap. However, their honesty only made the squad leader angrier, and several loud slaps landed on the faces of the four men. Not only were they lazy, but they also made up such a ridiculous excuse. Despite being slapped hard, the four soldiers dared not complain and straightened up again. You are all soldiers of the Empire, and you actually believe in these ghost stories, the squad leader roared. Immediately carry this corpse away and burn it. The four slapped soldiers immediately answered loudly. Another soldier grabbed a hand or foot from the boy's corpse, and together they lifted the body. However, even with the body up, the immense weight made their legs tremble. The corpse weighed well over 400 or 500 pounds. Useless. Get it burned. Seeing this, the squad leader went over again and slapped each of them hard across the face before leaving with his dozen or so soldiers. He didn't believe the four soldiers' words at all, and he assumed their actions were just for show. What ghosts or monsters existed? If they did, why hadn't he encountered them? And even if they did, would such a thing be discussed on the battlefield? Slapped again, the four soldiers had no choice but to grit their teeth and laboriously carry the incredibly heavy boy's corpse towards the cremation site. Fortunately, the cremation site wasn't far, only a few hundred steps away. The cremation site was the ruins of a collapsed house, surrounded by piles of rubble, with flames raging inside, and corpses sizzling and burning within. The four soldiers rested several times before finally managing to carry the body to this spot with great effort. Under the strange gazes of the soldiers responsible for burning the corpse, the four soldiers laboriously carried the body onto the rubble, then laboriously threw it into the fire before finally letting out a sigh of relief. They sat down on the rubble, panting, their faces pale, without uttering a word. That corpse was truly eerie. Hopefully, burning it won't haunt us, one soldier said, glancing again fearfully at the corpse in the fire. I've heard fire can ward off evil spirits. Hopefully it won't, another soldier said. But his gaze also involuntarily drifted to the boy's corpse in the fire. Clearly, he was still terrified. But this glance made him scream. He opened his eyes. Another soldier looking at the corpse exclaimed in terror. In the raging fire, the corpse they had just thrown into the flames was now staring at them with open eyes. Don't scare us, the other two soldiers, hearing their comrade's words, felt a chill run down their spines, even though they weren't far from the fire. They didn't dare look at the burning flames. What nonsense. It's just normal for it to burn, a soldier supervising the cremation sneered, utterly disdainful of the four men. In his eyes, four people struggling to lift a boy's corpse, and terrified by the burning scene, he looked down on them. Hearing this, the four soldiers breathed a sigh of relief, but dared not linger any longer, slinking away. Cowards. Watching the four soldiers slink away, the soldiers supervising the cremation spat, their contempt obvious. However, no one noticed that the boy's corpse, thrown into the flames, showed no signs of burning at all. Japanese soldiers. Have I transmigrated again, lying atop a burning corpse amidst the flames, and gazing at the soldiers in their khaki uniforms standing on the rubble beside him? Moonlight Tarn pondered. As the flames burned, his energy points were slowly replenished, albeit slowly. Since I've come to this world, let's begin a new life. In this world, I have many regrets to fulfill, even if it means bearing the stigma of a demon. This is a second chance from heaven, Moonlight Han thought, closing his eyes again, his mind sinking into a sea of consciousness. He found the technology template page and began to examine it. The technology template system was still there, it hadn't disappeared despite his re-entry. This was evident from his ability to withstand the flames and his ability to replenish his energy points upon waking. His technology template was also intact. Here's a summary with some additions. Carrier, Moonlight Han, Wang Han, the protagonist's name before transmigration. The carrier is unique and cannot be changed. Templates cannot be installed on non-carriers. Some templates can be used outside the body. Multiple templates can be used. Core, the core cannot be damaged and can automatically repair itself. War titles unlocked, unlocked after killing 3,000 people, already unlocked. Titles, 10 killers, 100 enemies, 1,000 slayers, 10,000 slaughter, kill 100,000. Kill count, 143,456, originally 129,527. It seems that nearly 20,000 innocent people and animals perished when I went berserk. Downloaded and installed templates, can only be controlled by the protagonist, single type, cannot be used multiple times. Energy collection template, can collect energy, electrical energy, thermal energy, kinetic energy, and special energy. Technology templates, Terminator, T-800 robot template, Bloodshot, Blood nanobot template, Terminator, T-1000 liquid robot template, Transformers, Megatron template, includes 5 forms. The Decepticon leader from Cybertron. Everyone knows him, so I won't go into detail. Transformation requires 30,000 energy points. Maintaining the form consumes 10 energy points per minute, with consumption doubling depending on the intensity of the battle. A small nuclear-resistant war fortress. A war fortress from the future, with 15-meter thick reinforced concrete walls, an internal space with a diameter of 20 meters, 3 layers, and a materialization cost of 100,000 energy points. It is equipped with 20 turrets, 50 anti-aircraft turrets, and 200 machine gun ports. Weapons and ammunition require additional energy points to materialize and can be repaired using energy points. Biotechnology, EVA, Unit 01 template. Height 81 meters, weight approximately 3,600 tons. EVA is the so-called ultimate general-purpose humanoid decisive battle weapon, a giant humanoid weapon, a replica of the Angels. Unit 01 is a replica of Lilith. The outer armor is not actually armor, but a restraint device. Manifestation consumes 1.8 million energy points. In normal state, it can utilize the field to a limited extent, consuming 3,000 to 30,000 energy points per minute of combat. Note, do not continue using if energy points are insufficient. Unit 01 without going berserk when power is off is a soulless Unit 01. In the power off state, it will 100% go berserk, and in the berserk state, there is a 5% chance of further awakening. Berserk state consumes 5 million energy points to control the berserk state, consuming 1,000 to 3,000 energy points per second. Note, In the controllable berserk state, do not continue using if energy points are insufficient, otherwise the awakening probability will increase to 50%. Unless you want to trigger an impact, installed weapon templates, multifunctional, SPAS 12 shotgun template, Minmi light machine gun template, M249 light machine gun, Barrett heavy sniper rifle template, Flying Thunder cannon template, Schneider 75mm mountain gun template 150mm K16 cannon template, Type 97 90mm light mortar template, Panzerfaust anti-tank rocket launcher template, K18 aerial incendiary bomb template, weight 2,500 kilograms, internal 50 kilograms of white scale, 1,800 kilograms of gasoline, XM556 Gatling gun template. XM556 machine gun is only 55 centimeters long, weighs 7 kilograms, uses 5.56 millimeters caliber ammunition. Selectable firing rate modes. 2,000 rounds/4,000 rounds per minute, consuming 80 energy points. Each bullet consumes 0.1 energy points. 2.0 caliber heavy aircraft machine gun template. Cybertron technology, equivalent in power to 20 mm anti-aircraft machine gun. Larger than the Barrett's 12.7 mm caliber, is an anti-aircraft weapon. The materialized weapon consumes 100 energy points, and each bullet consumes 1 energy point. AIM-9L Sidewinder missile, length 2.87 meters, diameter 0.127 meters, wingspan 0.635 meters, weight 86 kilograms, propulsion system, solid propellant rocket engine, maximum range 18.53 kilometers. Launch altitude 300 to 20,000 meters, flight speed Mach 2.5, guidance, passive infrared, warhead. 2.74 kilograms high explosive, kill radius 10 to 11 meters, mustard gas bomb, this needs no explanation, SVD sniper rifle, overall length 1,220 millimeters, barrel length 620 millimeters, bullet muzzle velocity 830 meters per second. Maximum effective range 3,800 meters, magazine capacity 10 rounds, uses 7.62 by 54 millimeters ammunition. Manifestation costs 15 energy points, each bullet consumes 0.3 energy points. Suicide drones, swarms. From Angel Fall, 35 centimeters long, 30 centimeters wide, propeller driven, 5 kilograms, triangular shape, speed 100 meters per second. Contains 3 kilograms of TNT, control range 5 kilometers, endurance 20 kilometers, no self-identification capability, controlled by the protagonist. Manifestation cost 50 energy points per unit. Because this thing is still incomplete and lacks sufficient data, the data is fabricated by the author. Tiger heavy tank, overall length 8.45 meters, height 2.86 meters, weight 57 tons. Main gun KWK-36-1L/56 tank with an 88mm caliber cannon and one 7.92mm machine gun, producing 700 horsepower. The armor is made of nickel chromium manganese rolled steel. Thickness details are omitted due to length constraints. It consumes 10,700 energy points. Maximum speed 38 km per hour, road, 15-21 km per hour, off-road. Energy point consumption per 100 kilometers. 45 on-road, 65 off-road. Wooden ballista. This is Konoha village technology. Once Moonlight Han understood its principles, a template for this ballista was automatically generated. This ballista can fire at a distance of 4 to 500 meters. The ballista itself consumes 100 energy points, while the giant crossbow bolt consumes 5 energy points. Storm Mech, from the game world, Counter-Strike Online. A semi-humanoid mech, 6 meters tall. Weighing 45 tons, using both hydraulic and jet propulsion. Equipped with two 20mm triple-barreled rotary machine guns, with a rate of fire of 450 rounds per second. It also has a shoulder-mounted 9-tube small rocket launcher. Manifesting the Storm Mech consumes 12,000 energy points, each bullet consumes 0.5 energy points, and each rocket consumes 50 energy points. 203mm howitzer, 230mm cannon, 40mm twin anti-aircraft cannon, 80mm anti-aircraft gun. M240 heavy machine gun, 0.5 caliber, technology templates, mass producible, can be used by others, DJI drone. Gas mask. Anesthetic needle, tranquilizer gun. Biochemical technology, methamphetamine capsule locator. Life detection radar, alien technology, capable of detecting life forms within a 30-kilometer range. Energy detection radar, alien technology, capable of detecting energy within a 30-kilometer range. Small walkie-talkie, universal type 30 kilometers range. Materialization consumes 5 energy points. Marking pen, technical template, can be used for tactical marking. Comes in various colors and has a unique scent, cannot be washed off by ordinary methods. Materialization consumes 1 energy point. Robotic intelligence from Transformers, a tiny transformer that transforms to almost invisible thickness, using extremely sharp flying discs as weapons. A technical template. Materialization requires 500 energy points, making it very cheap. Its value lies entirely in its technological capabilities. Claymore mine. Anti-tank mine. Maximum energy point storage. 5 million points. Chapter 139 One-Man Street Fighting. Oda-kun, look at that corpse. It seems, beside the bonfire, as the flames burned, a soldier in a khaki uniform rubbed his eyes, patted his comrade's shoulder in alarm, and spoke through trembling teeth. Watanabe-kun, what's wrong? Oda-taro asked, puzzled. That corpse, it didn't burn. Watanabe Junichi's teeth chattered as he pointed to the body of the dead boy in the fire. That is, Oda-taro followed Watanabe Junichi's finger and his eyes widened in disbelief. He clearly remembered that the boy's body had been carried in by 4 soldiers, who had seemed to be struggling. He had even called them cowards, a memory that lingered in his mind. But this body had been in the fire for some time. The other bodies thrown in later were charred, yet the boy's body hadn't even had its clothes burned. Could it be? Junichi, Watanabe and Taro Oda exchanged a glance, their legs trembling uncontrollably. This scene, beyond their common sense, naturally led them to think of something unscientific. How about we shoot him? Taro Oda suggested timidly. Aim for the head, Junichi Watanabe said, his teeth chattering, but he still mustered his courage. The two of them took out the guns they were carrying. After being burned for so long, he only stored 150 energy points, but it's barely enough. In the flames, seeing the 2 dung beetles raising their guns at him, the moon god finally sat up in the flames. My Amaterasu Amikami, bang! Bang! Seeing the moon god sit up in the flames, the 2 dung beetles screamed in fright and instinctively fired 2 shots at him. PFFT. PFFT, 2 pointed bullets struck Moonlight Hand's chest, leaving 2 thumb-sized bloody holes. However, almost instantly, these holes automatically healed, and the deformed bullets were expelled by the black substance. After hitting Moonlight Han, the 2 dung beetles didn't relax. Instead, they frantically pulled the bolts, wanting to continue firing. However, before they could even fully pull the bolts, Moonlight Han, still engulfed in flames, stood up and raised his hands to them in their terrified gazes, like a zombie. Bang! Bang! 2 different gunshots rang out, and Moonlight Han's hands instantly transformed, his left hand wielding a shotgun, his right hand firing a barrett simultaneously. As the gunshots rang out, one of the dung beetles was sent flying 3 or 4 meters away, his chest a bloody mess, while the other had a bowl-sized hole in his chest. What happened? Go check it out, there are still enemies. Oda-kun and Watanabe-kun are both dead. From behind the high rubble, a cacophony of bird-like chatter rang out, but Moonlight Han understood it easily. Accompanied by hurried footsteps, the nearby dung beetles rushed towards them, rifles in hand. Crash! The rubble rattled underfoot as the dung beetles charged up the rubble. Bang! The dull thud of shotguns echoed as they charged up the rubble. One by one, the dung beetles, guns in hand, were sent flying the moment they reached the rubble, their chests mangled and bloodied, their heads exploding into a bloody mess. Half of them didn't even see Moonlight Han standing in the flames before they died. Don't rush up. Use grenades. Behind the rubble, as the bird-like chatter resumed, no more dung beetles charged up the rubble. Seconds later, 8 grenades were thrown from several directions over the rubble, heading towards the sea of fire. Perhaps. This is the world I was meant to be in. As the grenades fell, Moonlight Hand's lips curled into a satisfied smile, his outstretched arms, now weapons, seemed to embrace the sun and hope. Boom! A series of explosions rang out in the flames, burning corpses blasted into pieces, flying over the rubble and towards the dung-skins surrounding them. The dung-skins scattered in panic. After all, the corpses were covered in gasoline. After the explosions, behind the high rubble, at the silent wave of the commanding dung-skin squad leader, The 20-odd Dungskins who had gathered together climbed onto the rubble. Hearing the gunshots and grenade explosions, more Dungskins were rushing towards them. Added 30 points, but the energy produced by grenade explosions is still a bit less than that of detonating tags. Moonlight Han sighed inwardly, stepped out of the fire, and also onto the high rubble. Bang! A dung beetle high up on the rubble saw Moonlight Han and immediately pulled the trigger of his Type 38 rifle. Bang! At the same time, a shotgun blast rang out. A bullet struck Moonlight Han's forehead, but unfortunately, there was no brain matter, it simply flattened his forehead. The impact of the bullet didn't even make Moonlight Han's head tilt back. Almost simultaneously, dozens of .5mm steel pellets slammed into his face, and the dung beetle's head exploded like a watermelon. Bang bang, bang bang. The next second, the two gunshots rang out alternately. One by one, the dung beetles on the rubble either had their chests riddled with bullets, their heads exploded, or large holes the size of bowls appeared in their chests. Within seconds, all of the dozen or so dung beetles on the rubble were dead. Long live the yellow scoundrels, a shout rang out from beneath the rubble. The dung squad leader drew his pistol, raising it to aim at Moonlight Han, who stood atop the rubble. Bang! Bang! Two shotgun blasts followed in quick succession. The next second, the dung squad officer's head exploded, his chest a bloody mess. Bang! 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 However, this was not the end, it was only the beginning. The loud gunfire of the Barrett echoed through the ruined streets. One by one, dung squad soldiers who had rushed from afar were riddled with holes and collapsed helplessly to the ground. Even hiding behind broken walls, they could be killed with a single shot through the gaping wall. Moonlight Han descended step by step from the pile of rubble, thicker than a thumb of spent bullet casings falling to the ground with a clattering sound. Half a minute later, all 50-odd dung squad soldiers who had arrived nearby lay dead on the ground, not a single one alive. Hit in the torso by Barrett bullets, they had no chance of survival. Energy points are still too few. After eliminating a squad of dung beetles, Moonlight Man frowned, turned and went into a dilapidated house before more dung beetles arrived, and left the street. Chapter 140 Ambush. The sound of rushing footsteps echoed through the street, the hurried footsteps of squads of a dozen or so dung soldiers. Be careful, there are still enemies hiding around, one squad shouted. Find them, search this area, don't miss a single spot. With the squad leader's shouts, the dung soldiers quickly searched every possible hiding place in the ruins. In a corner of the ruins, away from the main street, 3 dung soldiers carefully made their way through. In the ruins, one could still vaguely see the bodies of those who had died in the bombing, buried beneath the debris. Beneath the collapsed wall, a pair of red eyes watched the 3 dung soldiers approach step by step. 1 step, 2 steps, finally, the 3 dung soldiers reached the collapsed wall and prepared to step over it to continue searching the next spot. Crash! The sound of broken bricks and tiles being thrown up suddenly rang out. To the horrified eyes of the 3 dung soldiers, a boy of about 12 or 13 years old rushed out from under the rubble. The boy charged at a speed the dung soldiers couldn't react to, reaching one of them in the middle and delivering a swift, powerful punch to his chest. A crack echoed as bones broke, and the dung soldier immediately doubled over like a shrimp, his eyes bloodshot. The punch had shattered his bones and ruptured his heart. Seeing this, the 2 dung soldiers on either side immediately thrust their bayonets-equipped Type 38 rifles at the boy who had suddenly appeared. They were armed with bayonets in street fighting to facilitate close-quarters attacks. As a ninja, Moonlight Han had undergone rigorous training in ninja combat techniques and had even fought on ninja battlefields. Seeing the bayonets thrusting from both sides, Moonlight Han extended his hands to the left and right, accurately grabbing the muzzles of the 2 bayonets. With immense force, he spun 180 degrees, forcefully releasing the 2 rifles from the soldier's grasp. Thud! Thud! The sounds of blades piercing flesh rang out almost simultaneously. The bayonets on 2 Type 38 rifles had precisely pierced the hearts of the 2 dung soldiers. Not only were the blades embedded in their flesh, but the muzzles of their guns were also driven in. The 3 died without even having time to fire their weapons. HMPH, Moonlight Han chuckled bloodthirstily, tearing several strips of cloth from the dead dung soldiers and quickly tying several knots. He then removed the bayonets from his guns and attached them to the knots. He also took the grenades from their bodies, along with a gun and all the ammunition, before quietly leaving. If it weren't for the fact that the remaining energy points weren't enough for Moonlight Han to convert flesh into liquid robots, and that he himself dared not squander them, Why would he have gone through all this trouble? Unfortunately, he still didn't know which city he was in. In this ruined city, besides these grenades and the chakra in his body, he couldn't think of any way to replenish his energy points. Kame-kun and the other two are dead. The enemy is over here. 2 minutes later, 3 more dung soldiers searching for the enemy finally found their dead comrades and shouted loudly. Because they had only recently separated, they were certain that the enemy was within this area. As the 3 shouted, more than 20 dung soldiers quickly ran in from other directions, including 2 squad leaders. The 3 were killed with almost no resistance. The enemy is a Chinese martial arts expert. Be careful in the next search. A squad leader examined the scene and the bodies and said to the other dung soldiers. Yes, sir. Hearing this, the surrounding dung soldiers immediately responded. They dispersed again to start searching for the enemy, but this time they changed to 6 men per team, and each man was about 5 steps apart. Behind the half-collapsed wall, Moonlight Man, who had been listening to the footsteps, suddenly jumped out from behind the collapsed wall, and 3 bayonets in his right hand flew out instantly. Crack! 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 3 sounds of bones cracking rang out as 3 bayonets accurately pierced between the eyes of the 3 dung soldiers who had come searching, slicing upwards into their brains. Bang! 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 The 3 dung soldiers fell to the ground almost simultaneously. In their dying moments, they only saw the boy suddenly rush out and a fleeting glint of cold light, but had no chance to react. 3 more. That should be enough. Moonlight Man walked over, pulled the bayonets from their eyes, collected any useful items from their bodies, fired a shot into the air with his gun, and then formed hand seals to cast a transformation spell, turning into an inconspicuous piece of scrap brick. Clatter! With the sound of gunfire, 3 dung soldiers had already run over within a minute, and with the increasing sound of footsteps, more dung soldiers were running towards them. It's another squad of soldiers. The enemy just attacked them. They can't have escaped far. They might even be hiding nearby. Search the area immediately, and be quick. Squad leader Hattori Kenji, looking at the 3 still warm, bleeding corpses on the ground, immediately gave the order, pointing towards the broken wall. Yes, sir. Upon receiving the order, the surrounding dung soldiers, having lost a full squad of 54 men, assumed there were many enemies, so 2 companies, a full company of 180 men, but casualties are inevitable in war, of dung soldiers were searching for these hiding enemies. 43. That should be enough. Right at squad leader Hattori Kenji's feet, Moonlight Man, transformed into a brick, silently counted the number of dung soldiers arriving. As the dung soldiers turned and moved, Moonlight Man also moved. The transformation ended, and a sudden change occurred. To squad leader Hattori Kenji's astonishment, Moonlight Man punched him in the neck with his right fist, breaking his neck. At the same time, his left hand drew 4 bayonets from the cloth strip and flung them out, each one accurately piercing the backs of the dung soldiers, penetrating their hearts. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Clang! The sound of a katana being drawn rang out, and Moonlight Man's right hand instinctively grabbed the hilt of the katana of the squad leader, Hattori Kenji. With a swift movement, he rushed towards the direction where the dung soldiers were most numerous. As a member of the Moonlight Clan, and having once worked so hard, how could he not know swordsmanship? Triple slash! Thud thud thud! The sound of the sharp blade cutting through flesh rang out one after another. Moonlight Han, wielding the katana with one hand, had already swung it 3 times in a single second. The powerful strength, skillful swordsmanship, and rapid swings made the katana in Moonlight Han's hand incredibly sharp. With 3 slashes, 4 dung soldiers were almost cut in half at the waist. It's the enemy. Only then did some dung soldiers finally notice Moonlight Han. With shouts, several dung soldiers immediately raised their guns to fire. However, Moonlight Han was too fast and agile, weaving among his companions. Even at the speed of a low-ranking ninja, he was as elusive as a ghost to these dung soldiers, making him difficult to aim at. PFFT PFFT PFFT, blood splattered as the katana was swung. His free left hand was not idle either. Every time he touched one of the dead dung soldiers, a bayonet would fly out like a throwing knife, carrying tremendous force to pierce the heart of the dung soldiers who were about to aim at him. Chapter 141. It really is a monster. Bang bang bang. As more and more dung soldiers died, fewer and fewer dung soldiers remained around Moonlight Han. The remaining dung soldiers finally found an opportunity to fire at Moonlight Han, and gunshots rang out in quick succession. PFFT PFFT PFFT. Several jets of blood spurted from Moonlight Han's body, and his head was struck by several bullets. However, these attacks were nothing to Moonlight Han. He was completely unaffected, his katana still flashing rapidly, its speed undiminished. In the blink of an eye, 2 more dung soldiers were cut in half at the waist. Is he possessed? What kind of monster is this? Watching Moonlight Han, who had been hit by more than a dozen bullets, even in the head, yet continued to kill as if nothing had happened, the dung soldiers' eyes widened, and some soldiers even began to tremble. Ghosts and monsters have always been the most feared things in people's hearts. There are no ghosts or monsters in this world, keep firing. For the Empire, long live the Yellow Emperor. Seeing the soldiers clearly showing fear, the dung officer quickly shouted orders to boost morale. Bang bang bang, with the officer's shouts, the dung soldiers suddenly felt a surge of courage, their fear vanished, and they raised their guns, firing repeatedly at Moonlight Han. Long live the Yellow Emperor. 2 dung soldiers, as if they had been given an energy boost, took out a grenade in each hand, tapped it on their helmets, shouted loudly, and pounced on Moonlight Han, one after the other, grenades in hand. Faced with these 2 dung soldiers' suicidal attack, Moonlight Han curled his lip in disgust, but didn't let this good opportunity pass. Instead of dodging or killing the 2, he took out 2 more grenades, tapped them against his head, and held them to his abdomen, letting the 2 dung soldiers hug him tightly. 6 grenades emitted bluish-white smoke. Seeing this, the surrounding dung beetles quickly ran away, lying prone in the rubble. Boom! Boom! A series of explosions rang out, and the 2 dung beetles who were clinging to Moonlight were instantly blown off their arms by grenades. Their faces and bodies were mangled and bloody, the smell of burning flesh filling the air. At the epicenter of the 6 grenades explosions, Moonlight was even more badly injured. In some places on his head and body, his bone alloy beneath his skin and muscle was exposed. Although Moonlight was immune to fire and could absorb heat, he was not immune to the piercing effects of the grenades. The wounds on his face and body were inflicted by the blasts. My Amaterasu, she really is a monster. After the explosions, when the dung beetles who had been lying on the ground got up and looked at the epicenter, all their eyes widened in horror. At the epicenter of the explosion, Moonlight Han remained standing. Beneath his face, mostly blasted away, were a pair of dark red eyes. His half face, stripped of flesh, revealed metallic-looking bones and teeth. His neck, also missing much of its flesh, was supported by a metallic neck bone, and the metallic bones of his arms were exposed to the air. As Moonlight Han picked up his katana and began to move his mangled body, the remaining members of the dung skin group trembled violently, some even losing control of their bladders. At that moment, they had even forgotten their guns, their minds were filled only with a terrifying skeletal monster. 6 grenades at such close range only replenished 24 energy points. Moonlight Han sighed inwardly, not in a hurry to recover. The next second, Moonlight Han charged forward, his katana slashing down with incredible speed. PFFT, a splash of blood, a severed head rolling to the ground, brought the stunned dung skin group back to their senses. A ghost, run! Awakened by the renewed fright, the dung beetles cried out and turned to run, their courage gone. However, turning to flee meant the beginning of their demise. Since these dung beetles had seen what they shouldn't have, Moonlight Han wouldn't leave any survivors. After all, this was a scientific world. Even a small part of what he revealed that didn't belong to this world was enough to drive it mad, creating too many uncertainties. But he wasn't having enough time to hunt them down. Although the nearby dung beetles had been drawn to the area, the explosions and gunfire would surely attract even more from further away. He had to leave quickly, otherwise, surrounded by a large number of dung beetles, his limited energy points would put him at a disadvantage, and he might even be captured. After all his actions consumed energy points. The next moment, Moonlight Han's arm transformed into an M249 light machine gun. Rat-a-tat-tat, the machine gun's roar echoed through the ruins, and one after another, the fleeing dung beetles were pierced by bullets in the blink of an eye. However, half of the dung soldiers escaped to the back of other ruins, fleeing further away. There were about 14 or 15 of them. Rat-a-tat-tat, Moonlight Han moved swiftly through the ruins. Fortunately, these dung soldiers were all fleeing towards the street, that is, in one direction. In terms of both speed and agility, Moonlight Han was far superior to these dung soldiers. 15 seconds later, after firing nearly 100 bullets, all the dung soldiers fell. Even with continuous machine gun fire, Moonlight Hand's immense strength ensured high accuracy. He was confident that none of these dung soldiers would survive. After killing them, Moonlight Han activated his blood nanobots to restore his blasted flesh, while quickly collecting over 30 grenades and 10 bayonets from their bodies. Only when he heard the sounds of nearby dung soldiers approaching did he leave the ruins in another direction, in the ruins of the city, in a house that was only half destroyed by the explosion. In a corner of the house, after confirming there were no dung soldiers nearby, Moonlight Man, dressed like a beggar, pulled the pin on a melon-shaped grenade, tapped it against the wall, and then lay face down on the ground, clutching the grenade to his chest. Thump! The explosion rang out, but only produced a muffled thud, like a firecracker thrown into water. Its limited power wasn't even enough to knock Moonlight Man over. This method only provides me 8 energy points. Moonlight Man, his chest mangled with blood, stood up, sighing in disappointment once more. It's a pity the city's power was cut off long ago, otherwise, why would I bother with this method? But now, this was the only way he could think of to replenish his energy points. The reason he hadn't done it this way initially was because the explosion would attract a large number of dung soldiers. Even a muffled thud would still be loud. Actually, Moonlight Man had done this before, trying to exploit a loophole in the system. Unfortunately, using energy points to materialize explosives to replenish himself was simply not worth the effort. Not only does the energy consumed by the explosives exceed the energy points that can be absorbed, but the energy points needed to repair oneself must also be taken into account. Chapter 142 Stealing Electricity Again. Night gradually descended upon the ruins, and a torrential downpour began. It seemed even the heavens wept for the corpses in this ruined city. Suddenly, the sound of trampling bricks and tiles echoed in the darkness, crystal clear in the stillness. Baka. Who goes there? Hearing the voice, the 4 dung soldiers on guard duty immediately pointed their guns at the source of the sound, beams of their flashlights illuminating the area. Their shouts startled many dung soldiers sleeping in the nearby streets behind them, their first instincts being to grab their guns. Baka. It's me, Koizumi Junichiro. Under the beams of the flashlights, a dung officer in a tattered dung squad leader's uniform stepped down from the rubble, his voice filled with anger but pure dung dialect, a military knife in his hand. It was none other than Hattori Ken, the dung officer squad leader who had died by the Moonlight Sword. Saga, where are you from? Upon seeing the newcomer and hearing his authentic shit accent, the shit soldier on duty didn't lower his guard but asked. I'm from Akita in Kasukabe, Saitama Prefecture. I was knocked unconscious by a grenade while searching for enemies during the day and got separated from my soldiers, Hattori Ken replied, his voice carrying a genuine Saitama accent. Imitation of voices was a basic skill for ninjas, a mere regional accent was nothing. Hearing Hattori Ken's explanation, including the specific rural area and the unmistakable Saitama accent, the shit soldier on duty immediately stood at attention and saluted. The other soldiers, awakened by the noise, lowered their guns and went back to sleep. Seeing this, the Moonlight Man, transformed into Hattori Ken, breathed a sigh of relief and, wielding his katana, walked among the sleeping shit soldiers. Because his knowledge of the shit kingdom in this world was limited to what was mentioned in a certain Shin-chan anime, and fearing being exposed, the Moonlight Man didn't continue speaking, simply lying down and closing his eyes to sleep. A moment later, the dung soldiers who had been awakened cried out again. 400 energy points left. In the darkness, Moonlight Han opened his eyes again and slowly stood up. This time, however, his eyes were dark red, glowing faintly in the darkness. His infrared beams were activated. 6 bayonets slid from his sleeves, held by their tips. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, in the next instant, Moonlight Han swung his hands, and the 6 bayonets transformed into 6 streaks of cold lightning, piercing the back of the dung soldiers' heads. A soft SHH sound of a katana slowly being drawn echoed in the darkness. 5 minutes later, Moonlight Han, covered in blood, silently left the now silent, dilapidated street, carrying his dulled katana. On the dark street, heads rolled, and dark red blood stained the entire ground. Even with Moonlight Han's formidable swordsmanship, after beheading nearly a full squadron of 180 dung squadron members, his katana was almost beyond repair. In the dark night, a series of faint lights shone like guiding lighthouses at night on the sea, not bright, but still noticeable. Lights, looks like we've found an energy source. A smile appeared on Moonlight Han's lips as he saw the faint lights in the distance. Those lights weren't lighthouses, but the city's colored lights. He quickened his pace, but the closer he got to the lights, the more uneasy he felt. Fewer and fewer houses were destroyed, and some were even relatively well preserved. The difference between this place and the almost completely ruined city was enormous, as if the Dung Squad's bombing of this area had decreased. Feeling uneasy, Moonlight Han became more cautious. Soon, Moonlight Han spotted the source of the light on the opposite bank of a river, about 30 meters wide. Besides the streetlights, various brightly lit signs shone across the river. One or two people could even be seen walking by at night, hurrying along but not in a panic, as if the war on this side of the river hadn't affected the other side at all. Even the buildings on the other side seemed undamaged. This was a very strange phenomenon. Looking at the tranquility on the other side, Moonlight Han frowned. This side of the river was dilapidated, dark, and deserted, while on the other side, the lights remained on. A war, yet peace could be found across the river. This was a very strange thing. Quietly, he made his way to the river bank, looked around, and seeing no one on the other side, Moonlight Han used the faint light from the opposite bank to jump into the river. There was no splashing sound. Moonlight Han landed steadily on the water, quickly rushed to the other side, and with a powerful leap, landed on the opposite bank. Whoosh! Having reached the opposite bank, Moonlight Han darted into a street like a ghost, disappearing into the lamplight. This is it, deeper into the city. After lurking for a while longer, Moonlight Han stopped behind the utility pole behind the wall of a luxurious European-style mansion. The pole was entangled with numerous wires, roughly 20 or 30 connecting all the surrounding streets. Stepping onto it, Moonlight Han defied the laws of physics, running as if on flat ground to the top of the pole. He drew a bayonet from his belt, quickly peeled back the insulation from several wires, and grabbed them with both hands. Buzz! The crackling sound of electricity exposing itself rang out, and a satisfied expression appeared on Moonlight Han's face. At the same time, a residential street to the west also went completely dark after the power went out. Energy points began to increase rapidly at a rate of 2 or 3 points per second. As for the areas experiencing power outages, Moonlight Han felt no qualms whatsoever. It wasn't the first time he'd done something like this. Power outages were commonplace for the residents of this era, nothing unusual to them. Those who wanted to sleep slept, and those who didn't want to sleep simply slept. No one cared, and no one bothered to investigate. This lack of investigation made Moonlight Han's actions even easier. He used his bayonet to strip more wires, accelerating his electricity theft. Instantly, another street was plunged into complete darkness. As his energy points increased, Moonlight Han's electricity theft became increasingly brazen, utilizing the Terminator T-1000 template. Stripping all the surrounding wires, Moonlight Han transformed into a pool of liquid metal, enveloping all the wires on the utility poles. In an instant, dozens of blocks nearby, including the lit European-style villas, were plunged into darkness, and Moonlight Han's energy reserves began to increase at an even faster rate. If someone were standing under the utility poles and looking up, they would see that the poles resembled a giant honeycomb built by wasps, enveloping all the wires. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 143. I'm using my real name again. I am Wang Han. The next day, people woke up grumbling, complaining about yet another power outage, yet another day, as they continued their lives, year after year, day after day. Even though war was still raging on the other side of the river, it didn't affect these ordinary people's ability to earn a living. At most, they'd have to be more careful when going out. They weren't worried about the enemy reaching this side. After all, this was a concession area for many foreign powers, and even if those foreign powers were ruthless, they didn't want to offend the countries these concessions represented. This was why, despite the war being fought across only a river, the difference in power levels was so vast. The power repairmen arrived early in the affected area, going door to door to find the cause of the power outage. They had encountered this situation many times before. Sometimes it was due to burned out lines, sometimes due to reckless thieves, and sometimes even due to lightning striking power poles. Moreover, with war still raging on the other side of the river, some unusual incidents were not surprising. They simply found the problem, restored power, and reported it. More and more people are fleeing from the north. This place probably can't hold them all. I used to be able to sleep at night, But last night I couldn't. Really? The guns have stopped. How can they not sleep? I heard they've all retreated. The Japanese couldn't possibly have reached this side. In the morning, a light drizzle began to chill the city. Along the streets near the riverbank, people who had fled from the other side the previous night could only huddle in the alleyways under their umbrellas, almost completely filling both sides of the streets. Talk of conversation rang out from the crowd. Where did this little stinky beggar come from? Get lost. At a rice cake stall, the vendor saw a dirty, smelly little beggar sitting on the stone steps next to his stall and immediately began to berate him with a hostile expression. The customers buying rice cakes around the stall quickly covered their noses. The stench emanating from the little beggar was unbearable for them. Their disgust was obvious, and they all moved away, not buying any rice cakes. Even those who had fled here avoided the little beggar, preferring to squeeze in with others rather than sit on the stone steps around him. Hearing the vendor scolding, the little beggar remained silent, quietly observing the people on the street. Some were dressed in suits, others in laborers' clothes, some were students, some were wealthy landlords' sons, and some were rich ladies in cheongsams, but now, everyone looked disheveled. In the rain, they were all equal. The French concession, listening to their discussion, Moonlight Han had a rough idea of where he was. You stinking beggar, looking for a beating. Seeing the little beggar unmoved by his scolding, the vendor flew into a rage, grabbing a broom from his stall and heading towards the little beggar. Boss, forget it, he's just a child. I'll go and persuade him to leave. Seeing this, a girl dressed as a student, sitting nearby with an umbrella, quickly stood up and stopped the vendor. Alright. Seeing this, the stall owner sighed. He knew the child was probably a refugee who had fled from the other side of the river, and he was quite pitiful. If he didn't also need to eat and support his family, he really wouldn't have been so harsh. Little friend. What's your name? Did you get separated from your family when you fled here? The female student walked up to Moonlight Han and almost vomited from the stench emanating from him, but she held back and asked gently. However, her smile seemed somewhat stiff under the influence of the stench. My name is Wang Han. Looking at the female students who seemed kind to him, Moonlight Han opened his mouth and finally uttered the name he had buried for a long time but had never forgotten, and never dared to forget. Wang Han. P.S. From this point on, the protagonist's name will be Wang Han. I don't think everyone wants the protagonist to still have a given name in this world. Wang Han, did you get separated from your family? The female student asked gently. Upon hearing this, Wang Han paused for a moment, then nodded and said, I've been separated from them for a long time. Then you must persevere. I believe they're definitely looking for you everywhere, the female student said with a smile, encouragingly. But you can't go to see them looking like this before they find you, otherwise they might not recognize you. Can you leave here first and wash yourself? You're interfering with a boss's business. He has a family to support too. You really know how to talk, Wang Han said with a smile, but still got up and walked towards the riverbank. Indeed, the smell of blood on him was too strong. He was stinking and really needed to wash. Moreover, he should go to the other side of the river and come back to replenish his energy at night. That was the most important thing for him to do right now. Although he had only stolen about 5 hours of electricity yesterday, with the charging of more than 30 wires, he replenished about 6 energy points per second. Now he had a full 100,000 energy points. Apart from those high-consumption large templates and Gatling gun templates, he could freely squander the other templates. Seeing Wang Han walk towards the river, the female student breathed a sigh of relief. The boy had escaped a beating, but that was all she could do. Too many people had fled across the river from the fighting. Reaching the riverbank, Wang Han could finally see part of the city. In the distance, there was an estuary where warships were anchored. Sooner or later, I'll turn you all into scrap metal, Wang Han cursed inwardly, then jumped into the river, sinking to the bottom. He tore off his tattered clothes and washed the blood off his body. Thump, thump, thump. Shortly after Wang Han jumped into the river, huge, muffled cannon shots rang out at the end of the riverbank. The booming of naval cannons followed, and warships were firing ceremonial fire, celebrating their victory. Long live! Long live! Long live! On the opposite bank, on the buildings, the Japanese bastards waved their rising sun flags and shouted loudly. On this side of the river, people gathered, gazing at the giant ship firing its cannons at the estuary and the shouting Dung soldiers on the opposite bank. Some were worried, others indifferent. Bang! Bang! Suddenly, 2 rifle shots shattered the Dung soldiers' cheers. One Dung soldier, cheering downstairs, fell to the ground. Rat-a-tat-tat, the sound of several check-light machine guns followed, and several more dung soldiers fell. Enemy, Hasib Company, take cover. With these shouts, the remaining dung soldiers quickly fled to the surrounding dilapidated buildings and cover. Why is it fighting again? Didn't they say they had already retreated? People on the riverbank exclaimed in alarm. Chapter 144 Sihan Warehouse. Here's a note, since the main character is involved, the battle here won't be tragic. If anything, it'll be the dung beetles who are tragic. Please don't criticize if this doesn't match the plot of the movie. Quick, both teams converge. The dung soldiers reacted quickly. In the ruined city on the opposite bank of the river, large numbers of dung soldiers lined up and rushed along the street towards the riverbank. Their target was a 4-story warehouse near the riverbank. It was a 6-story reinforced concrete building, and the warehouse's name, 4-Line Warehouse, was written on its side. Under the officer's command, after more than 20 dung soldiers rushed into the warehouse, the doors suddenly closed. Accompanied by bursts of gunfire and grenade explosions, the battle began quickly and ended just as quickly. Soon, the gunfire and explosions inside ceased. Meanwhile, they're fighting again. At the bottom of the river, Wang Han frowned. After a fluid-like movement, a new set of black clothes appeared on his body. Regardless of the circumstances, since he had come to this world and now possessed the ability, he absolutely had to help. Otherwise, his conscience wouldn't allow it, even if it wasn't the right time for him to intervene. After quietly swimming a short distance, Wang Han stealthily climbed ashore about 200 meters west of the Sihan warehouse and quickly slipped into a building. At this moment, everyone's attention was focused on the Sihan warehouse, and no one noticed Wang Han, who had already quietly reached the opposite bank from a relatively distant location. Once inside the building, Yu Guang'an launched 4 drones from the window, heading towards the direction of the gunfire. Simultaneously, he quickly traversed the buildings, rushing towards the source of the gunfire. This is the Sihan warehouse. When the drone saw the word Sihan warehouse on the side of the building, Yu Guang'an finally confirmed his current time frame. He quickened his pace, running to a dilapidated red building on the side of the Sihan warehouse and climbing to the 3rd floor, looking out the window. From here, he could see the entire square outside the main gate of the Sihan warehouse. Here, it was only a street away from the Sihan warehouse. Wang Han arrived at a perfect time. As soon as he reached the window, he saw 20 or 30 soldiers wearing gas masks, carrying grenade launchers, running to the edge of the square and crouching down in their bunkers. Squad Leader Zhu, come quick. Come and take a look. At the same time, inside the Sihan warehouse, a nationalist soldier at a 2nd-floor window shouted loudly, and many soldiers also ran to the windows, seeing the soldiers with grenade launchers and gas masks at the edge of the square. M249 light machine gun template, in the red building next to the Sihan warehouse, watching the soldiers setting up their grenade launchers and preparing to fire, 2 large pineapple-shaped gun barrels quietly extended out of the red building's window. Special ammunition, fire, a soldier shouted in gibberish, and next to the grenade launcher, a soldier in a yellowish-brown uniform picked up a box of special ammunition and prepared to throw it. Rat-a-tat-tat, just then, a burst of gunfire suddenly rang out from the red building, the muzzles of the guns shooting out tongues of fire a full meter long. PFFT PFFT PFFT. Dense bullets pierced through the dung soldiers preparing to fire special munitions, drawing jets of blood from their bodies. The special munitions the dung soldiers were about to throw rolled to the ground, these munitions with their pins already pulled, spewing out large amounts of yellow smoke within 5 seconds of landing. There's a machine gunner on the red building on the west side. Take cover, retreat, retreat, quick, revive the wounded, suppressive fire. Seeing their dead comrades and the leaking special munitions, the remaining dung soldiers cried out in alarm, quickly retreating or seeking cover. Rat-a-tat-tat, the roar of the machine guns continued, and any dung soldier exposed would be riddled with bullet holes in the next second. It's special munitions, poison gas. They used it in Luodian before, in the Sihan warehouse. Cries of alarm rang out as people watched the special munitions in the hands of the dung soldiers being shot by machine guns emit yellow smoke. Brothers, put on your gas masks, turn on the exhaust fans. The command voices rang out immediately, and the Sihan warehouse was instantly thrown into chaos. Soldiers in the warehouse quickly pulled out gas masks and put them on. Those without masks hurriedly urinated on cloths and used them to cover their mouths. There are friendly forces in the red building to our west. Can they hide? In the red building to the west of the Sihan warehouse, looking at the soldiers hiding behind cover, Wang Han sneered. His left hand continued to maintain the M249 light machine gun template for suppressive fire, giving them no chance to escape or throw special ammunition. His right hand, however, replaced a light machine gun template with an iron fist template. Wang Han's right fist disappeared, replaced by something resembling a 120mm artillery shell, iron fist anti-tank rocket launcher. Although its function is the same, it is not an RPG. Manifestation consumes 50 energy points, and each rocket consumes 60 energy points. The protagonist's arm is the launcher, so it can be reused. Whoosh! The next moment, a plume of white smoke as thick as an arm shot out from the window of the third floor of the red building, heading towards the few dung soldiers hiding in their bunkers. Boom! A loud explosion rang out, the powerful blast comparable to an 80mm cannon, instantly turning the place where the dung soldiers were hiding into ruins. Several dung soldiers were even blown to pieces in the explosion. Whoosh! Before the remaining dung soldiers could react to the explosion, another iron fist flew out of the window of the red building. Boom! Another explosion rang out. Retreat! Retreat! Urgent shouts rang out, and the remaining dung soldiers dared not hide behind their bunkers any longer, desperately rushing out and running towards the street outside the square. Staying meant certain death. Running offered a glimmer of hope. Bang! 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 However, the continuous gunfire cut off their last hope. Bullets swiftly pierced their bodies. The soldiers in the Sihan warehouse opened fire. Chen Shushan, take a squad and find a way to bring the brothers in the red building on the west side over. This time he ruined Shippy's plans. Shippy will definitely target him. He just helped us and prevented Shippy from throwing in special ammunition. Now we can't stand idly by. We have to hurry. In the Sihan warehouse, Company Commander Lei, standing on the second floor, loudly ordered Chen Shushan, the deputy squad leader of the 4th Squad of the 2nd Platoon of the 2nd Company of the 1st Battalion, who was cleaning up the battlefield on the 1st floor. Yes, Company Commander. The 4th Squad of the 2nd Company, come with me to rescue them. Upon hearing this, Chen Shushan immediately shouted. Rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat. Just then, intense gunfire rang out in the red building. Company Commander Lei, Shippy is fighting with the people in the red building, a soldier shouted, interrupting Chen Shushan's next move. Chapter 145 Dung comes around my back. Inside the red building west of the Sihan warehouse, just 3 minutes after dealing with the scumbags at the edge of the square, Wang Han, using a drone flying 1,000 meters in the air, detected their new movements. About 28 scumbags were stealthily approaching the red building from the street behind it, clearly intending to flank him. Trying to outflank me, huh? Wang Han, who had everything under control, sneered, transforming his right fist into a light machine gun once more. He moved from the window to the window behind the red building. After waiting half a minute, until all the scumbags had entered the street behind the red building, Wang Han suddenly leaped out of the 3rd floor window. Rat-a-tat-tat! The moment he jumped out, the light machine guns in Wang Han's hands spat fire, hissing. While Wang Han was still in the air, bullets were already firing at the scumbags on the street at a rate of 30 rounds per second. In an instant, dirt and stones flew everywhere, and blood and flesh splattered. Fire! Seeing the boy jump out of the 3rd floor window, the dung beetles hesitated for a second, but only a second, before immediately raising their guns and firing at Wang Han. No one even tried to dodge. Clang! Clang! Bullets struck Wang Han, leaving white dents, but for Wang Han, who was using a liquid robot template, this only required a small amount of energy to repair. However, it was a different story for the dung beetles. Bullets pierced their bodies, reaping their lives. Rat-a-tat, rat-a-tat, rat-a-tat. 8 seconds later, after consuming 240 rounds, Wang Han stopped continuous fire and switched to burst fire, finishing off each fallen dung beetle with a few bullets to the head or torso. Only after finishing off all the dung beetles did Wang Han turn and walk back into the red building. The gunfire has stopped. In the Sihan warehouse, hearing the gunfire subside in less than 20 seconds, Company Commander Lei sighed. The rescue is too late. Chen Shushan sighed as well. There was no need for a rescue. It wasn't worth sacrificing more people to bring back a few corpses. Trying it again. You think you've already caused me losses? Then don't blame me. Inside the red building, Wang Han sneered as the drone detected that the shit people had sent another team, 54 men, to flank them. He then left the window again. However, This time, Wang Han didn't use the same trick at the window on the third floor of the red building. The red building was now under scrutiny from all sides, and Wang Han didn't want the people on the other side of the river to see him. Going down to the first floor, Wang Han transformed his hands into Barrett rifles and walked to the window. At this moment, the shit people who had flanked him entered the street behind the red building. They quickly ran to the side of the street on the red building's side and crept towards the building along the houses. The advantage of this was that, due to the angle, the people inside the red building couldn't attack them from the window. However, this was no challenge for Wang Han. In the sky, the drone had already flown to a position 1,000 meters above the red building, providing a clear view of the street behind it. Using the T-1000 liquid robots calculation program, Wang Han aimed his Barrett rifles at the walls of the red building, switching to steel-tipped bullets. Bang! 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 Loud gunfire echoed through the red building, as terrifying as small-caliber cannon fire. The continuous barrage of Barrett fire sent dust plumes of smoke falling from the building. PFFT. PFFT, on the street side of the red building, the leader of the sneaking soldiers was pierced through the wall by a Barrett bullet, his chest instantly ripped open with a basketball-sized hole. Before he could fall, several more Barrett bullets flew in, instantly cleaving him in two, the bullet fragments scattering everywhere. Behind him, several more soldiers also met the same fate, their bodies riddled with holes, some even severed in two. The wall of the red building was riddled with holes the size of basketballs from the Barrett's armor-piercing bullets. Quick, take cover. Get inside. Seeing their dozen or so comrades die a horrible death, the dung beetles behind shouted, scrambling into the houses along the street. Inside the houses? Even better. Seeing this, Wang Han sneered, walking directly to the wall and kicking it open with a single blow. Another kick sent a large hole through the wall of the adjacent White House. The 7 or 8 dung beetles who had just hidden inside stared at Wang Han through the hole, somewhat bewildered. Bang bang bang. Looking at the bewildered dung beetles hiding inside, Wang Han flashed a smile, revealing his white teeth. He opened fire with both Barretts. In an instant, blood and flesh flew through the dilapidated house. Barrett bullets turned them into mangled corpses. Even another wall was riddled with holes the size of fists in basketballs. After eliminating the scumbags inside, Wang Han kicked the hole in the wall even bigger, stepped inside, and, stepping on the bloodstains on the ground, went directly to the other wall, kicking it again. Commander, there are still friendly brothers holding out in the red building. Commander, let me take some brothers to meet them. Me too, count me in. In the Sihan warehouse, hearing the gunfire, the soldiers shouted. Many soldiers expressed their willingness to go and meet their brothers holding out in the red building on the west side. No one is allowed to go. The scumbags have already made the red building on the west side a key target. They must be prepared for us to go out to rescue them, and they might even be hoping we go out. Going out now is just suicide. A loud shout came from upstairs, extinguishing the soldiers' enthusiasm. If they had gone to rescue the red building from the beginning after knowing there were friendly troops inside, the scumbags wouldn't have had time to prepare. But now, this was the third time the scumbags had attacked the red building on the west side, so how could they not be prepared? Now they could only pray for the friendly troops in the red building on the west side. They're fighting again. On the opposite bank of the river, a large crowd gathered, craning their necks to watch the situation at the red building. Although the battle was taking place inside and they couldn't see anything, they still hoped the people inside could hold out. The people in the red building won't last long, the Japanese on the riverbank side, shaking their heads. They weren't optimistic about the defenders in the red building. This red building was crucial to the Sihan warehouse, located to its west, allowing for flanking fire support and protecting the western side of the warehouse. It was extremely important. However, because the red building lacked strong fortifications and was outnumbered, it was easily overrun by the enemy, so the Sihan warehouse hadn't sent troops there. But the red building's importance remained. Before capturing the red building, a frontal attack on the heavily fortified Sihan warehouse would be extremely dangerous for the Shitskin army. Therefore, the Shitskin army would definitely take the red building first. Chapter 146 Wang Han's shocking moves. After dealing with the scavengers who had flanked him, Wang Han immediately deployed a large number of claymore mines in the buildings he had breached before returning to the third floor of the red building and then going up to the rooftop. V8 speakers. Upon reaching the rooftop, Wang Han placed one hand on the floor. Instantly, two 1-meter tall V8 speakers appeared on the roof, as if they had grown out of the ground. Technical template, V8 speaker template, super loud volume, stereo surround sound, the perfect choice for square dancing, built-in microphone, 24 hours of playback on a single charge, 10,000 trendy songs included. Manifestation consumes 50 energy points, charging consumes 20 energy points. After manifesting the speakers, Wang Han immediately adjusted them, turning the volume up to maximum, and then picked up the microphone. Ahem. Hello. Hello. Everyone should have heard that, right? The next moment, Wang Han's cough echoed throughout a radius of 500 meters. In the Sihan warehouse, the soldiers who were further reinforcing their defenses stopped. On the opposite bank of the river, the people on the shore stopped talking and exchanging words, and more people gathered by the river. In the ruined city, the dung beetles, who were preparing to attack again, stopped their pre-battle preparations. The dung beetle soldiers behind them also stopped what they were doing. Everyone looked in the direction from which the voice came, the red building next to the Sihan warehouse. Ahem. Me. Well, I'm from the red building on the west side of the Sihan warehouse. Well, I'm the only one in there right now. What I'm about to say might be a little unpleasant to hear, but I hope everyone will listen. Wang Han's words came from the loudspeaker, spreading over a radius of 500 meters. It also made everyone curious about what the person in the red building wanted to say, and the voice sounded somewhat immature, as if you were still a young child. First of all, regarding this war, I just want to say that the licking yellow of that dung beetle country with its dog skin plaster flag is dreaming of eating shit. No, I mean, dreaming of eating shit. 400 million compatriots of China, one shit each, could feed him enough. Including those dung beetle soldiers. Don't be so ambitious, Wang Han's voice continued from the loudspeaker. Baka. Yalu. Wang Han's words were followed by a deafening barrage of baka, echoing through the ruined city. Not only had their beliefs been blatantly insulted, but this was especially egregious, happening right here in the middle of the river, with embassies of various countries across the water. This was a disgrace to the entire world. The fury of those scumbags was palpable. Attack immediately. Kill him, I'll tear him to pieces, follow me to kill him. We absolutely cannot let him insult His Majesty the Yellow Emperor again. Then, scumbags within a 500-meter radius began charging towards the red building. He's gone mad, but his insults are quite apt. Inside the Sihan warehouse, the soldiers exchanged glances, then burst into loud laughter. Did I hear that right? On the opposite bank of the river, both Westerners and Chinese were stunned. Shit country, Yellow Emperor, damn Japanese flag, scumbag soldiers. Many faces displayed a variety of expressions. This was the first time they had ever heard such a phrase. But you have to admit, the imagery, or perhaps the homophony, was surprisingly convincing. The Chinese people laughed heartily without restraint, while the Westerners struggled to contain themselves. Ahem. Wang Han's cough came through the speakers again. I haven't finished speaking yet, everyone. Don't get too excited, you shitskins. I've already told you the truth. I'm right here in the red chamber. Come at me if you dare. Of course, if it's one of your shit country's geishas, I'll concede defeat. After all, I'm still young. My body can't handle that kind of thing. With that, Wang Han turned on the music he had prepared beforehand, and the sound of the Suona horn immediately filled the city. This song was either a song of great joy or great sorrow. For the Chinese, it was a song of great joy because he had arrived, and for the shitskins, it was a song of great sorrow because he had arrived. As the words from the speakers faded, the music began, and the ruined city fell silent for a moment. Baka, arrogant, capture him alive, skin him alive, tear him apart, and execute him by 1,000 cuts. Catch him, I'll chop him into mincemeat alive, remove the bullets, he must be alive. Then, even more frenzied roars and curses echoed through the ruined city as the dung soldiers, their eyes bloodshot, charged towards the red building west of the Sihan warehouse. Hearing the deafening roars of anger resounding through the ruined city, Wang Han smiled broadly. He had successfully enraged the dung soldier army, pushing them to the forefront of international attention. The red building and the Sihan warehouse had successfully reversed their importance in the dung soldiers' minds. If they didn't want to lose face further, if they didn't want to be unable to hold their heads high internationally in the future, they had to annihilate him as quickly as possible. But was that possible? He still had 100,000 energy points. On the opposite bank of the river, the laughing crowd fell silent for a moment. What a courageous kid, damn, this kid's awesome. A role model for us all, If my son could do that, I'd be laughing in my sleep." The crowd on the opposite bank of the river erupted in excitement, their laughter growing louder. Even the female students, who found Wang Han's words somewhat vulgar, couldn't help but feel excited. Ha ha ha! The Westerners, who had been struggling to suppress their laughter, finally broke down in a frenzy. "That kid succeeded," a foreigner on the second floor of a coffee shop by the river said with a smile. The background music, in particular, amplified the mockery. Its continued playing signified that the boy was still alive. It was enough to let everyone know when the outcome would be. This was a slap in the face, a complete humiliation. It was foreseeable that today's events would spread internationally at breakneck speed, becoming a huge laughingstock for this country. Even if they immediately tore the people in the Red Mansion to pieces, it wouldn't change that fact. Of course, if they couldn't kill the boy in a very short time, they would only be looked down upon even more. If that boy escapes, things will get even more interesting. The entire shit country will likely lose face internationally. Even their allies will look down on them, and their international standing will be severely shaken. Moreover, one can imagine that the boy's words in the Red Mansion will inspire courage in many, making the shit country soldiers seem less terrifying. Calling it shit country was definitely not intentional. But what was the country's original name? This is a calculated move. Now, before killing that child, the four banks warehouse is no longer important. Compared to that unknown boy, I am ashamed of myself. On the second floor of a residential building, a professor said admiringly. The boy's words forced the shit country soldiers to kill him as quickly as possible, regardless of the cost. Even if it was a trap, and would result in more casualties, the shit country soldiers had to save face. However, that boy was destined to die. And to terrible death. His courage was admirable. In the four banks warehouse, the commander didn't know what to do. He also considered the international situation, but while other countries were laughing at him, China was on the verge of a life or death struggle. His soldiers, however, hadn't thought of any of this and were laughing just like the people on the other side of the river. Chapter 147 Claymore Mine Gatling Gun. Bang 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 bang, rat-a-tat-tat. The moment the background music started, the sounds of machine guns and rifles from the shishi, a derogatory term for the Japanese, echoed throughout the city. However, the shishi's bullets weren't aimed at the red building where Wang Han was located, but rather, the Sihan warehouse. The dense barrage of bullets even made the soldiers inside afraid to peek out. Although the shishi were furious and eager to capture the boy in the red building who deserved to be torn to pieces, they weren't completely blinded by anger or lost their minds. If they didn't suppress the fire at the Sihan warehouse, they would inevitably be sniped and interfered with by the enemy inside during the capture of the boy in the red building. The people inside the Sihan warehouse might even rush out to fight them, covering the boy's escape. If the boy escaped, the empire and its people would be utterly disgraced. This incident would surely reach the international community today, with many reporters and international figures watching. They had to take the toughest and most resolute stance, capture the boy alive as quickly as possible, torture him by any means necessary, and let everyone see the consequences of provoking the empire, thus salvaging their reputation as much as possible. Every extra second spent in the capture was a further blow to the empire and its people. Therefore, they had to suppress the enemy inside the Sihan warehouse. They didn't seek to kill them, but they absolutely couldn't allow them to interfere with their capture of the boy in the red building, Baka. As the Sihan warehouse was completely suppressed by the dung-skinned soldiers outside, hundreds of them began to howl wildly, charging like pigs from the square in front of the warehouse, and from the back and sides of the red building towards where Wang Han was hiding. No matter how many enemies were inside the red building, they were determined to capture the boy who dared to provoke the entire empire. Even his corpse would be whipped in revenge. Just when everyone thought the boy in the red building was finished, and felt sorry for him, two six-barreled Gatling guns suddenly appeared from the windows on the third floor of the red building. The dense gunfire, as loud as an airplane propeller, roared. Metal bullets, accompanied by tongues of fire 1.5 meters long, poured down from the windows like a torrential rain, drenching the dung soldiers charging into the square. For the first time, the Gatling gun displayed its killing power to the world. PFFT, 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 200 bullets per second. A single Gatling gun has a rate of fire of 6,000 to 10,000 rounds per minute, instantly pelted the densely packed dung soldiers, falling like hailstones into a lake, splattering large patches of blood. The swarming dung soldiers fell faster than wheat being harvested. The unfortunate were even directly riddled with bullets into mincemeat. Someone once said, "If there's a Gatling gun on the front lines, I will never let my soldiers go forward, because that would be slaughtering my own soldiers." However, such casualties were within the expectations of the dung-skinned soldiers' officers. They never believed there was only one enemy in the Red Building, otherwise, their entire squad and a half wouldn't have been wiped out, with not a single soldier managing to retreat. Bang bang bang, rat-a-tat-tat. At this moment, the dung-skinned soldiers began suppressing fire on the Red Building. Hundreds of guns fired simultaneously from the square, hundreds of bullets instantly striking all the windows of the Red Building, sending brick fragments flying everywhere. Clang clang clang. On the third-floor windows of the Red Building, Wang Han, whose hands had transformed into Gatling guns, was hit by 4 or 5 bullets, leaving several silver dents on his body. However, these dents healed in the blink of an eye, while the 2 Gatling guns in Wang Han's hands never stopped firing. Brass cartridge cases fell like water, swallowing Wang Han's feet in moments. Buzz buzz buzz, the Gatling guns continued to fire, slaughtering the dung-skinned soldiers charging in the square in front of the Sihan warehouse at a rate of 40 men per second. The background music continued to play, but to different people, the Suona's double happiness evoked completely different feelings. Charge. In contrast to the carnage in the square in front of the Red Mansion, 300 or 400 dung soldiers were unharmed as they charged into the street behind it. Heads surged, rushing madly towards the Red Mansion. On the opposite bank of the river, countless people watched nervously. There was no resistance, the dung soldiers were already swarming into the Red Mansion. Could it be that only a young boy remained inside? Boom. However, when the first dung soldier kicked open the door behind the Red Mansion, an explosion suddenly rang out. 700 steel balls flew in a fan shape towards the dung soldiers outside. Instantly, the first dung soldier became a veritable hornet's nest. At least 200 steel balls struck him in the explosion, leaving him a bloody mess. Behind him, 7 or 8 dung soldiers also fell. If they hadn't been shielded from the shrapnel, many more dung soldiers would likely have perished. Technical template, Claymore mine, total weight 1.58 kilograms, dimensions, mm. 216-35-83, lethality, fragmentation, steel balls quantity, particles. 700, fragmentation steel ball scattering angle 60 degrees, effective kill radius, 50 m, safe distance after detonation, 16 m. Detonation method, manual electronic ignition, induction electronic ignition. However, the deaths of only 7 or 8 people could not stop the madness of the dung soldier. After the explosion, the dung soldier, armed with bayonets fixed, rushed into the Red Building through the back door and climbed into the Red Building through the windows. In less than 10 seconds, 34 dung soldiers had rushed into the building and were heading towards the second floor. However, the dung soldier did not notice the 4 claymore mines hidden in the ruins of the Red Building. Boom, 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 boom. 4 consecutive explosions rang out in the Red Building. 2,800 steel balls rained down on the charging dung soldiers almost without leaving any blind spots. Under this dense barrage, all the dung soldiers who rushed into the building were riddled with holes, none alive. Even some dung soldiers outside the windows fell to the ground. The walls inside were riddled with holes. Charge. Seeing that all 30 or 40 soldiers who had rushed into the building were dead, and not a single enemy was to be seen, the commanding dung officer gritted his teeth and shouted the order. He ordered more dung soldiers to rush into the Red Building and towards the second floor. In the past, he would never have given such an order that could so easily kill his men, but now, they had to take this place as quickly as possible and wash away the humiliation, even if it meant turning everyone into a suicide squad. Otherwise, every longer the battle dragged on, the more humiliation they would suffer. Boom! Another explosion rang out in the Red Building. The 3 dung soldiers who had just rushed to the corner of the stairwell were immediately met with a hail of 700 steel balls, becoming a blur. The dung soldiers behind them were also terrified and broke out in a cold sweat. Keep charging. Watch out for landmines, the dung officer shouted again. Baka, with a roar, more dung soldiers rushed up the stairwell. Chapter 148. Even myths and legends don't exaggerate like this. A minute and a half passed quickly. The Gatling gun continued to fire from the 3rd floor window of the Red Building, the buzzing of bullets echoing through the air. In that short time, nearly 20,000 bullets had poured out, the casings falling like water up to Wang Han's calves. On the square, the corpses of the dung soldiers were piled up in layers, one on top of another, the number exceeding 400. Even the enemies suppressing the Sihon warehouse had suffered heavy casualties. The low-lying bomb craters were filled with blood. Despite the Dung soldiers' pig-root-like, dense charges, they couldn't even get within 20 meters of the red building. The remaining less than 100 Dung soldiers on the square were now lambs to the slaughter. Amidst the Gatling gun's propeller-like firing, not only was there no chance of reaching the red building, but even retreat was a pipe dream. Under the relentless rain of bullets, they couldn't escape the square. If their target had been the Sihon warehouse, they might have already stormed it. Unfortunately, there are no ifs. Now, under international scrutiny, they must first wash away their humiliation. At this moment, the world finally realized the terror of the Gatling gun for the first time, even if it was just a small 5.56mm Gatling gun. Inside the red building, the continuous explosions of claymore mines continued. On the second floor, the walls and ceiling were riddled with bullet holes from steel balls. The corpses of the Dung soldiers were piled up in every corner of the red building, even higher than the pile in the square, blood flowing down the stairs like streams. The remaining Dung soldiers were beginning to tremble with fear, having lost more than half their men without even seeing a single enemy. Gentlemen, the culprit who insulted the Empire and its people is now on the third floor. It's time for us, the Empire's finest soldiers, to demonstrate our final value. Launch a desperate charge, capture the culprit, torture him to death, and let the world see the resolve of our Imperial soldiers. Long live the Yellow Emperor! Long live the Empire! On the second floor of the red building, Captain Higu shouted loudly to his soldiers. Long live the Yellow Emperor! Long live the Empire! Encouraged by Captain Higu, the remaining soldiers erupted in a thunderous roar. Each soldier used every ounce of strength, their shouts shaking the dust from the building and even carrying beyond the red building to the concession across the river, almost leading many to believe the soldiers had captured the boy. Fortunately, the still ringing gunfire and background music indicated that the resistance in the red building was ongoing, and the soldiers had not yet succeeded, bringing some reassurance to those on the other side of the river and in the Sihon warehouse. Gentlemen, the time has come to serve the Empire. Long live the yellow scoundrels, Captain Higu shouted, drawing his katana and leading the charge towards the third floor of the red building. Long live the yellow scoundrels! Long live the Empire! Under Captain Higu's leadership, the remaining Dung soldiers roared with high morale, launching a final charge behind him. At this moment, it was either death or victory, there was no third option. Boom! Boom! Two explosions rang out in the corridor. After sacrificing Captain Higu and a dozen or so Dung soldiers, the remaining soldiers finally reached the third floor of the red building. There wasn't a single claymore mine on the third floor, even the interior walls had been completely removed, making the third floor very spacious. Contrary to the Dung soldiers' expectations, the third floor wasn't filled with enemies. There was only a young boy firing continuously from the last window. A buzzing sound emanated from the strange weapon in the boy's hand, bullet casings flowing from the barrel like water. The Dung soldier saw a very strange boy. The weapon in his hand seemed to be an extension of him. The next moment, as these Dung soldiers rushed up to the third floor from the stairwell, the boy pointed one hand at them. Let's call it a hand for now. Buzz buzz buzz, the buzzing of gunfire immediately filled the red building, and a dense rain of bullets instantly covered the Dung soldiers who had rushed to the third floor. The first few Dung soldiers were immediately torn to pieces by the bullets firing at a rate of 100 per second, followed by those behind them. Meanwhile, the boy's other hand continued to fire at the remaining Dung soldiers in the plaza outside the red building. Although the firepower targeting the plaza had been reduced by half, it still easily suppressed the less than half of the Dung soldiers remaining in the plaza and reaped their lives. Baka. Are all the men in the Haze battalion useless? The sounds of smashing things and slapping echoed from the Dung skin soldiers' command post. The young general roared, while the other Dung skin officers in the command post fell silent, too terrified to utter a sound. No one had expected that the small three-story red building to be so difficult to conquer. They had almost sacrificed an entire battalion without stopping the music resounding from its rooftop. Now, not only had they failed to wash away the enemy's insult, but the loss of almost an entire battalion had only added to their shame. They feared that by tomorrow morning, their scandal would be exposed internationally. Commander Kawasaki, Commander Tianqiu, prepare immediately. You will launch the attack in 10 minutes. This time, I not only want you to take the red building and capture your culprits within the first 5 minutes of the battle, but also to completely take the Sihan warehouse within 20 minutes, and you must win decisively. Only in this way can we salvage the face of the empire, and the face of the imperial soldiers and the imperial nation. Venting his anger, the young General Kono, the battlefield commander riding a warhorse, shouted the order. Hi! Upon hearing this, the 6 officers in the tent immediately stood up straight, feet together. They actually held it. They killed so many dung beetles. Inside the Sihan warehouse, the soldiers looked out the windows at the horrific scene outside, where dung beetles' corpses almost covered the square, and they all expressed their astonishment. They had become quite accustomed to using the term dung beetle. What kind of weapon is this? It's so powerful, Company Commander Lei exclaimed in equal amazement. Judging from the gunfire, besides the explosion, there was only one type of gunfire coming from the red building. We held them, on the opposite bank of the river. Seeing that no more dung-skinned soldiers were charging towards the red building, the onlookers all breathed a sigh of relief. They were naturally happy that the country's soldiers had been able to hold off the invaders. Chapter 149. Even myths and legends don't exaggerate like this too. Everyone says it's just hype, don't take it too seriously. This volume is mainly for fun. Commander Z, should we send men to support the people in the red building? Or bring them over, in the Sihan warehouse? Because the shippy soldiers had temporarily retreated, Company Commander Lei immediately asked the deputy commander of the 524th Regiment, if anyone knows, please comment. I won't write it out. After the battle just now, especially with so many explosions, the red building was probably about to collapse. Moreover, having experienced a defeat and paid a huge price, the shippy soldiers, eager to regain their honor, would definitely launch an even more ferocious attack next time, even recklessly, and it definitely wouldn't last long. Company Commander Lei, take a dozen or so brothers to bring the brothers in the red building over here. The red building can't hold out for long. Hearing this, Commander Z thought for a moment and ordered Company Commander Lei, who was directing the soldiers on the first floor. Yes, sir. Upon hearing this, Company Commander Lei immediately selected a dozen or so men and walked towards the back of the Sihan warehouse, preparing to circle around to the red building from the back. Thud. Thud. They had barely climbed out of the window and reached the side wall of the Sihan warehouse when they were met with sniper fire from multiple directions by the dung soldier. 2 men were immediately hit and fell to the ground. The rest were pinned down behind the warehouse and unable to escape. Company Commander Lei clenched his fists, utterly helpless. The dung soldier would never allow them to support the people inside the Red Mansion, not even a single one. Long live the Yellow Emperor! Long live the Empire! Just as Company Commander Lei was pondering how to get to the Red Mansion's aid, a deafening roar of "Long live the Emperor" echoed through the nearby ruins of the city, like a tsunami. Damn it! Company Commander Lei slammed his fist against the wall. He knew the dung soldier was about to launch another attack. He hesitated, wondering whether to risk rushing into the Red Mansion. Although the risks outweighed the benefits, he still wanted to try, even if the outcome was certain death in this attack. Because he was also a soldier with blood in his veins, not a coward, at this moment, he felt an urge to rush over and fight alongside his allies in the Red Building. Really, on the 3rd floor of the Red Building, Wang Han, watching the Moonlight Warehouse behind the Sihan warehouse through a drone, complained as he walked to the top floor of the Red Building, his hands now holding Barrett rifles. The soldiers who had climbed out of the Sihan warehouse clearly had an impulse to try their luck. Now, the Red Building and the corners of the walls on both sides of the Sihan warehouse were being targeted by enemy snipers. This impulse was undoubtedly suicidal. Although he didn't need their support at all, and their presence would only hinder his performance, he could have ignored them. But how could he bear it? They were all people who were risking their lives for this country, contributing everything they had. Clang 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 clang. On the top of the Red Building, Wang Han had just walked up when 5 bullets hit him directly, leaving 5 silver dents in his head and chest. This meant that at least 5 snipers were aiming at the top of the Red Building. Fortunately, the speaker on the roof of the Red Building had an alloy casing and had been reinforced, capable of stopping bullets. Otherwise, the background music would have stopped long ago. Now, it had at least 100 bullet holes, indicating that the shit-skinned snipers hadn't given up on destroying this damned speaker. The drones flying in the sky had already pinpointed the positions of the shit-skinned snipers around them using infrared. They even saw their terrified expressions, presumably surprised that bullets hitting Wang Han had left strange silver-white dents. Bang bang bang. The next second, Wang Han raised his Barrett rifle, having already calculated his position, and opened fire continuously. Whether it was the shit-skin snipers or the support snipers hiding beside them, even those behind walls, they all met their ends in the next moment. One after another, Barrett's large-caliber bullets, like the call of death, swept across hundreds of meters, precisely piercing their heads or chests. After killing the shit-skin snipers, Moonlight Han walked to the speaker and picked up the microphone. "Brothers of Sihan Warehouse, thank you for your kindness, but I don't need your help. Since I said I'd fight them alone, I'll fight them alone. You don't need to worry about me, and don't risk your lives to help me. Don't let those bastards say I broke my word. Go back." With Wang Han's shout, the defenders of Sihan Warehouse were stunned, as were Company Commander Lei and his men. Even the crowd on the opposite bank of the river was stunned, as were the Westerners. "Yes, we can't let them underestimate us Chinese. Yes, well done, young brother, one man is one man. We'll show those bastards the backbone of Chinese soldiers." A promise is a promise. On the riverbank, the crowd erupted in cheers. Although they believed the brothers holding out in the Red Building could hardly continue, they considered their defeat honorable. Of course, they still didn't believe there was only one person in the Red Building, but who would say it now? "I never imagined that shit country would be driven to such a state by a mere teenager. I actually hope that Red Building can hold out a little longer. Then, shit country will have even less influence internationally." Two Westerners discussed this, while a Chinese reporter nearby pondered, "Baka, his biggest lie is that there's only one person inside. There's clearly a company, no, two companies, even a battalion of Chinese soldiers defending it." The shit people were even more furious. The teenager in the Red Building dared to underestimate them so much, repeatedly belittling them. "Charge." At this moment, the shit officer finally gave the order to attack. With the order, the already prepared shit soldiers immediately formed a shield formation with steel plates and launched an attack on the Red Building and the Sihan Warehouse. Not only that, their tiny tanks were also brought in by the shit people to cover the soldiers' charge. The shit soldiers also began a frenzied barrage of firepower against the Sihan Warehouse and the Red Building. Boom, boom, boom. A series of cannon shots rang out, shells exploding on the Red Building, blasting large holes in it and making it teeter on the verge of collapse. However, the Japanese soldiers were clearly still concerned about the international situation following the bombardment of the Sihan Warehouse, as well as the tens of thousands of tons of flour inside, and dared not fire directly at it. Facing the Japanese soldiers charging towards the Red Building and the Sihan Warehouse, Wang Han inside the Red Building did not use the Gatling gun again. The enemy had taken precautions, and the Gatling gun was no longer as effective. Chapter 150. Even myths and legends don't exaggerate like this. 3. Crash. The three-story Red Building finally collapsed under the relentless shelling, bricks and dust raining down to the ground. We still couldn't hold it. Those scum even used tanks. There's nothing we can do if we can't hold it. It's already remarkable that we held on this long. Looking at the collapsed Red Building, people on the riverbank couldn't help but lament. Although they already knew the inevitable outcome, they still couldn't help but mourn that China had lost another fine son. Long live the charging scum. Seeing the Red Building collapse, also collectively shouted long live, but their lamentation and joy were clearly premature. With the collapse of the Red Building, not only were the piled up corpses inside revealed to everyone, all of them scum, but more importantly, a huge steel monster, resembling a giant, stood within the collapsed Red Building, causing everyone to widen their eyes. Even the charging scum soldiers couldn't help but stop in their tracks, staring in astonishment at the enormous monster that had appeared in the ruins of the Red Building. A storm mech, and a storm mech modified by Wang Han at that. Based on the original storm mech, Wang Han added 4 Gatling guns controlled by mechanical arms to its back, making it look like a giant robot with 6 arms. Furthermore, the original storm mech already had a 9-tube rocket launcher on its right shoulder, while on its left shoulder, Moonlight Han added in direct firepower, a flying thunder cannon. The sound system was re-emerged on the storm mech's back, and the suona, a traditional Chinese wind instrument, background music continued to play. Thump. The next moment, the storm mech moved. Before everyone's stunned eyes, its massive footsteps rose and fell with a sound like a heavy hammer hitting the ground. Thump 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 thump. The storm mech's 3-barreled Gatling guns opened fire, unleashing a dense barrage of 12.7mm large-caliber bullets at the Deng soldiers' steel plate formation and miniature tanks. The first to suffer were the Deng soldiers at the forefront, holding steel plates and approaching the Sihan Warehouse. The steel plates in their hands were useless. Large caliber bullets pierced through them, and the dense barrage of bullets tore them to pieces. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, boom boom boom, 9 rockets from the right shoulder flew out in succession, their trails blazing, landing among the charging Dung soldiers and the tiny tanks, instantly unleashing explosions with a power of 150mm howitzer shells, flames and black smoke rising from the square. Buzz buzz buzz, the Dung soldiers' defenses weakened, and the 4 6-barreled 5.56mm Gatling guns on their backs opened fire, a dense barrage of bullets firing at a rate of 400 rounds per second at the surrounding, now unprotected Dung soldiers. It was like sweeping away the dead, swiftly reaping their lives. Thump, thump, thump. Sounds like heavy hammers hitting the ground rang out amidst the hail of bullets. Wang Han piloted the storm mech, which began to move, transforming into a powerful, mobile fortress. Clang, clang, clang. The Dung soldiers' retaliatory rifle and machine gun bullets struck the storm mech, causing only a few sparks, having absolutely no effect. Boom. The 40mm tank gun of the tin tank fired, hitting the storm mech, but only causing it to pause briefly, taking a small step back, and leaving a minor mark on its armor. Thump, 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 clang, clang. The next moment, the storm mech's counterattack rained down on the firing tin tank, the 12.7mm bullets penetrating the frontal armor of these tin tanks as easily as tearing paper. In the blink of an eye, the firing tin tank had been riddled with dozens of bullet holes. Boom! A huge muffled sound rang out from the storm mech's left shoulder, accompanied by a burst of fire as a 10-kilogram explosive charge was fired from the flying thunder cannon. Boom! A huge explosion resounded from behind the densely charging Dung soldiers. Flames and thick smoke shot high into the air, and 20 soldiers instantly fell to the ground. The flying thunder cannon's power was comparable to an 80mm cannon, equivalent to the tank gun of a Tiger tank, but it was far inferior in range and armor-piercing capability. Bang! Just 5 seconds later, the flying thunder cannon roared again. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! At the same time, another round of rockets was fired from the right shoulder of the storm mech, landing in the densely charging swarm of Dung soldiers, triggering another series of violent explosions. The storm mech was like a killing machine, standing in front of the densely charging Dung soldiers, constantly firing. Every second, dozens or even hundreds of Dung soldiers died under the storm mech's firepower. At this point, the densely charging Dung soldiers could not even get close to the Sihan warehouse, let alone charge in. The entire battle was almost a one-sided affair. What kind of weapon is that? Could it be a secret weapon of China? Impossible. China doesn't have this technology at all. It must be a new weapon that China bought from some country. Which country's weapon is it? Why have we never heard of such a weapon before? On a high-rise building, Kono Isao observed the almost one-sided battle on his side through binoculars, his brows furrowed deeply. China possessing powerful weapons is almost never beneficial to any country, otherwise, China's weaponry wouldn't be so backward. Which country broke this unspoken rule? Could it be the Northern Bear? Impossible. Even if the Northern Bear manufactured such a weapon, they would never expose it to China so early. Send a telegram immediately, reporting the emergence of a new weapon in China to the National Assembly. It must be detailed. Also, send a copy to the military. After thinking for a while, Kono Isao immediately ordered the messenger. Also, immediately order the Kawasaki Battalion and the Akiba Battalion to withdraw. Continuing to increase casualties will only make us more humiliated. Hi. Upon hearing this, the messenger immediately said hi and ran away. What kind of weapon is that? It's so powerful. Meanwhile, inside the Sihan warehouse, the soldiers were equally astonished as they watched the storm mechs slaughter the densely charging Dung soldiers like mowing grass or killing dogs. This rate of killing had already wiped out at least 700 or 800 Dung soldiers, and destroyed all 8 tanks they had brought. And in such a short time, less than a minute. It was terrifying. What kind of weapon is that? On the 4th floor of the warehouse, watching the storm mechs slaughtering the Dung soldiers below, Deputy Commander Z frowned, deep in thought. He was certain he had never seen or heard of such a weapon before. He sensed something unusual, the scent of conspiracy. The identity of their allies was something to ponder. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all, see you in the next video.